All right, I will call the regular Ridgway Town Council meeting of Wednesday, October 11, 2023 to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Council members Graham-Lake,
Here.
Kroger, here, Lakin, here, Schuyler,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer,
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. Thank you. We're all here today. That's great. Are there any additions or deletions to be done?
I have one there. We can remove please item 14, that's review and direction on proposal for the deployment of electric vehicle chargers in partnership with Helios Charging Inc. Reason for that being it's just not ready for that. The proposal's great, but the grant program depicted in that in the proposal hasn't opened yet. I don't think we'll open for a few more weeks, so we have more time to vet.
Yeah, sweet. Sounds good. Anything else?
And nothing.
Okay. All right, that takes us to the adoption of the consent calendar. Anybody have anything on there they want to pull off, or is your motion approved? So moved.
A second.
Motion made by Russ, seconded by Beth. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to public comments. Establish time for the public to address the council regarding anything that is not otherwise listed on the agenda. Comments limited to 5 minutes per person. Anybody have anything? Looks like everybody here is something on the agenda. All right. We will move right along to public requests and presentations. First one, or the only one under that, is item number 3, introduction and consideration for funding a 2024 budget from Minerva West Performing Arts. Kathleen and Brenda. Welcome.
Thank you. I want to just start by thanking you guys for letting us come and introduce ourselves in Minerva West. I'm Brenda Ratcliffe. I'm the president of the board for Minerva, and get up here, Kathy. This is Kathleen O'Hara. She's our artistic director. And we sent on a letter a little bit of our history, but for those that aren't familiar with us, we are a local community theater performing arts company that started in May of 2022. And our mission is to inspire creativity and achieve, I don't know my lines, creativity, community, and personal growth by providing performance arts opportunities to all those who want to participate, regardless of age, experience, or ability. And as part of that, we also are aimed to make a community of belonging, or a safe community for people in underserved communities. Since we got started, well, I guess I should say Minerva grew from a commitment to local community theater, which Kathleen developed over 30 years of performing arts and theater arts experience, both elsewhere in the country and here in Ridgway. Many of you know that she worked at the SHRM. There she established with Lee Hopkins the youth theater program in 2015, and then got the adult theater program going in 2017, and then worked there until she switched over to Minerva. And so far, Minerva has presented 11 productions with 41 performances and engaged more than 120, the actual number I think is 122 local actors, crew members, and volunteers. And they range in age just within our letter also, but it's been updated from 7 to 79, I just found out. And our performances have been seen by over 1,700 people. And part of our mission is also to serve the youth of the community. And in doing that, we have established after school performance programs, theater arts programs for the youth in both of the Ridgway schools. And I'm going to turn it over and let Kathy tell you a little bit about that. She can speak with her notes too.
And I'm the one that said I'm nervous. Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. I just want to say, first of all, this opportunity to have town funding is a very new information to myself and our board. And I just thought it was very special in our community on a town platform help support community activities in Denver's. And I just think that's super cool. So when we found it, I always think about the fabric of our community, and we're all partners in bringing these kids opportunities and all sorts of activities, from athletics to creative arts to performing arts to music and dance. And I just thought it was, I feel very lucky to live in a community that has that kind of commitment from the town level. So it's just cool. So thank you for that. As Brenda left off, one of the things that was very exciting about the success in the last 18 months is establishing after-school programming, both at the elementary school and the secondary school. And this summer we were able to do a summer residency there. Also, we had 22 kids performing in Mary Poppins, which is exciting. And the truth is, the reason why we're here looking for additional funding is because we encourage kids, young adults of any kind of background and economic resources to participate. And my thing with Minerva across the country has always been, just pay what you can. Sibling discounts, all those other things. So what the reality is that it's awesome to provide that opportunity, but unless you have a donor or some funding support, that money's just missing in your budget. So if a student and their family can pay you $25 and the program's $300, we're ecstatic to have that kid there, but it's not in our operating budget to cover expenses. So to be able to find resources to create a kitty and some soft cushioning in our budget that says we have X amount of dollars to support youth scholarships. And we know that that number is, we still, if we spend that money, we're still not going to turn anybody away. It'd be nice to have that in our operating budget line item. On average, our tuition for a 6-week program that's offers 55 to 60 hours of instructional time, plus a full weekend of performances. The kids always get 3 shows. No matter what, we make sure they have 3 shows, because I believe that's important for their arc. So with the funding, we've asked for a full of $5,000. And when I think it through, I know that that could support 15 students over the course of a year. We do 5 shows a year, 5 productions with the kids. So when I do the math, it's like that would help us know that we'd be able to support a lot of students that I've heard from some parents about so-and-so not joining a program because of costs. And the other exciting thing, and I've switched gears entirely, but speaking of that, I'm very excited to announce to you that Susan Lacey and I have been meeting, and we're going to do an in-school performance of The Hobbit at the elementary school next Friday afternoon. So all the kids from grades 2nd to 5th are going to be able to experience live theater with their peers, hopefully doing a good show of The Hobbit. And that's just a good example of what Susan and I have realized, that some kids cannot get back for an evening show, whether it's because of transportation or parents working, or quite frankly, parents being able to pay the ticket price to bring a youth to come see one of our productions. So this is exciting. It will help build the program, I'm sure, but it also gives an opportunity of kids who might not be able to see the show to be there as a school community to see it. So, and I'm exciting about that.
Yeah, I would just add, when we were calculating out how many kids we could potentially help, the average for a production average tuition is $300 usually, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. So that's how we calculated it. If we got the full 5,000, we'd be able to help about 15 kids.
And we do know from this last 18 months that we have given discounted tuition or free tuition in the tune of $4,000. So based on those last numbers and knowing and hoping that the program will build with increased enrollment and increased need for the assistance. And I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have or any other information that we could provide that would help with your consideration. And I also want to let you know that we're not putting all of our eggs in your basket. We're also very actively fundraising. We have a big holiday fundraiser, the second annual holiday bazaar at the event center in November. We are continually blessed with individual sponsorships. We are actively looking at business sponsorships and partners because we understand grant writing. We have 2 grants out there and there's 3 more on the list. So from my experience, I understand theater doesn't make money. It takes a lot of different resources and contributions on many different levels, from volunteers to people who might have old furniture that they donate to the theater. It takes a lot of different resources. So I just want to let you know that we're not just asking you for help. We're also working on other avenues of funding sources.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for this guy?
Actually, do you have a physical space or do you?
We are so lucky. We have been working, the Ridgway County 4-H Event Center has become our primary adult community theater room. And if anybody likes to stay up late and look at YouTube, we have a wonderful Minerva West YouTube channel where it has our adult show. We don't post the children on that YouTube, but at the event center, we have performed Shrek, which was a little too big production, which has the youth and adults perform. We did an amazing production of All My Sons. We did Vagina Monologues. We've done Godspell and a really fun little play that will make you laugh. It's called Play On. All of those adult productions are on that YouTube channel. It's kind of fun to zoom through it and to see what we're able to do in this space. Every show's had a different look, a different set, different seating arrangements. So it's been a really very nice venue for us. And then with working with Susan Lacey, superintendent, I met with her a year ago. And we were able to establish an after-school program for theater that's at the school. So our youth theater venue is at the Ridgway Secondary and then the elementary school. And our adult community theater is being, the venue is the 4-H Center. We're lucky kids.
Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. All right, that brings us to policy members. Number 4 is update regarding Ridgway Athletic Park master planning process and possible direction. Preston?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So we're coming closer to the 3rd phase of the master planning process for the athletic park. And to date, the engagement and discourse has been pretty tremendous. I think you all seen that. We've had a packed house for a couple of public forums, which has been great. I'm really proud of the efforts that have been made to date and all the engagement, and pretty much how we've gotten to this point. We're still in the process of soliciting feedback through October 20th. As of this morning, we've received 86 written comments. And I can't thank everyone enough for their very thoughtful and respectful comments and contributions to the process. It's been very helpful. There's definitely been some common themes. I hope you all have had a chance to delve into all 86, give or take, written comments that are in the packet, including a late ad. So before DHM starts the process of taking all the feedback into account and developing what's going the final preferred layout, Cammie Walker with DHM, Deb, and myself have all confirmed, we do believe it'd be prudent for staff to check in with council, which is why we're here now, to get some direction on the inclusion of specific uses at that site, at the athletic park. Again, there were some common themes in those letters, and again, the discourse has been tremendous. All that to say, we're looking for any sort of direction council is willing to provide tonight. I think it's pretty clear what the call needs to be made on. We can get into that more detail if we need to, but we need some direction in order not to impede DHM's ability to come up with a final preferred layout to present at a public meeting, and it'll probably be early November, mid-November. I'm making that up, but we do need to set that final meeting. So I think that's the gist. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, so who wants to start?
I just first want to start off, and I am sure I see some people here in the audience who did write in, and I just want to say thank you so much for all of your thoughtful and intentional engagement for this athletic park. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be an awesome development for the community as a whole. And I just have like a couple personal thoughts. One of my thoughts is I love how engaged all the pickleball players are. I love that they want 12 courts. 12 courts seems like it's a bit much. I know one of the letters said that that's about a court for every 10 people, or what was that?
One for every 100 people.
One for every 100
1200
people.
here.
Yeah, seems a bit like a lot. I'm thinking more in the 4 to 6 courts, and also utilizing the, still utilizing the tennis court and the basketball courts. I think that that's pretty reasonable. And that might also improve the soccer situation. I saw a lot of engagement from the soccer community, and there was concern about the spacing, the exact spacing. So I'm wondering if we make it a bit more equitable for pickleball and baseball and soccer. So we might be able to shift the little league field, and then we can also shift the soccer fields slightly apart. And then another thought is paving the parking lot the best use of resources? Just posing a question, just want to know. In my opinion, I think we may want to think about moving the solar idea, which again, I love the solar idea, but I think maybe moving that to Green Street. I think finding a location that's not in the athletic park might be the best option. And I know it doesn't line up quite as well for Dana Iger's property with that situation, but I think we need every inch of space in that park for the purpose of recreation. Those are my thoughts.
I also think this council has expressed a really strong desire to work on sustainability goals. And I think putting a solar array in our athletic park is going to kill a lot of goodwill in this community for efforts to increase solar capacity and approach sustainability goals. I think people who would otherwise be really supportive of those ideas are really going to feel hurt by this one in particular.
Yeah, I'd like to see us focus on that ahead of everything else at this point. We really need to decide whether or not the solar component of the plan whether we want it to go forward or not. And my take along the lines of both our the ladies involved with the council is that there's overwhelming comments against it in the feedback from the public. And while I definitely think we need to be addressing climate change and putting solar in whenever and wherever we can, I do think that one thing that's come out of this planned process in my mind is that while some of us may have thought 18 acres was a whole bunch of land at one point, it's really not for all the needs of the community in terms of recreation. I've heard from more than one person that the other side of the coin is that if we don't do something about climate change, nobody's going to be recreating outside in another 20 years. I think that while that may be true, I think I really agree with what Beth said. I think if we go forward with putting the solar array in the athletic park against what appears to be pretty solid majority against it, we're gonna lose some goodwill in favor of doing it elsewhere. So my feeling is we probably should pull that, and then we can focus on how to arrange the other elements. What does everybody else think?
I too have heard an overwhelming amount of support against solar panels, the solar array in the park. And this job is, if I had this much feedback from the public on every topic that we ever talked about, this would be the easiest thing in the world. It really would. Everybody's for it. Everybody just wants to find a different place for it. Not there in the park, in the athletic fields. Green Street comes up quite a bit. I've heard discussion of the fields outside of the high school or any of that kind of land. And I know that's a totally different conversation, but it's overwhelming. Nobody really wants it in the park.
And I think, thinking back to when we budgeted for this master plan, like, I don't really know, even as a council member, when the solar array got introduced to the process. And the reason we discussed doing a master plan was we had multiple user groups coming to us saying, we want things in the athletic park. We did not want to just promise or approve until there was a master plan for how it was all going to fit together. And I think it's become very clear we need to use that for our athletic park.
I don't think I'd be doing my due diligence on behalf of the Sustainability Advisory Board if I didn't shine a light on the fact that in this kind of carts and horse process, the way the potential for the microgrid got discussed initially was unfortunate, and kind of set it up for misinformation, for thinking it's been characterized as a special interest. So I just want to make sure that is noted. And if you haven't had a chance to read the letter that we submitted from SAB, was with the intention to see if there was a possibility, and it sounding like not just the community dissent against this idea, but there may not even be from staff a viable timeline to consider doing a fourth option of designing a modified version of the solar array in a more limited fashion along the fence line there that would then integrate with the Ivers property, thus enabling the town to get the benefits that having it on town land would provide.
So that can't be directed by staff. That's a council decision.
Yeah. So yeah, point being is, I mean, I've read the letters. I mean, I've gotten earfuls all over town. Realized that going forward, I think it's really important that if we do move the conversation towards Green Street, that we really dedicate some time to think how we deliver that, and ask for the opportunity to be able to present that in a very clear manner, because this got convoluted from the get-go. So even though I'm speaking on behalf of a board, a committee, so I think going forward, I would love to be able to see an innovative, integrated approach to be able to bring solar into that spot. Even after a couple of quick conversations of minor excavation and doing a berm, we could drop it out of sight That would involve a little bit more design and engineering. But given the timeline that we seem to be on, it's hard to know how to consent for a whole committee. But we hear the input, and we got to balance that with the values throughout the community.
So it sounds like we actually have a separate conversation with maybe not as full master plan on Green Street, but Green Street has sort of morphed with our community apiary and our community garden. Like it kind of is a central spot for some sustainability ideas. And I think as a separate conversation, I'd love to entertain that idea of how can Green Street Park kind of function in a specific highlighting way, in the same way the athletic park is highlighting athletics. And we think we should put a pin in that and certainly come back to that conversation and talk about how we can package that.
And that would be time critical.
Yeah, whatever timeline that needs to be on, but I think it's kind of distinct now from where we are on the athletic park.
Terry, any thoughts?
Terry, I know you have strong opinions about this.
I'm just listening.
Maybe it's helpful to give a little history on how this came to be the way it is. In response to the town's desire to have solar, SMPA originally looked at putting solar only in Green Street Park. And that came up in an earlier meeting, and it was not leaked, it was reported. And there was some immediate public backlash on that, based on having no information or background as to what that would mean, what it would look like. None of the details have been discussed to the public. There have been some discussions with the town council. As a result of that immediate, albeit minor pushback compared to this pushback, I'm representing SMPA, conferred with Preston, and we looked at that piece of unused property in the athletic park. It has a big dirt mound, the weeds, and decided that might be an interesting spot for a solar array. Since then, we had access to this unprecedented state DOLA funding to look into microgrids. So we morphed the design into a larger microgrid, with the main purpose of the microgrid being resiliency for the town, 4 to 6 hours of battery backup for the entire town west of the highway, including all of our critical infrastructure, EMS, water, sewer, town buildings, most of the residents, most of the businesses. It's the circuit on this side of the highway, excuse me, not the circuit on the other side of the highway. We wrote that into a planning grant, was awarded a planning grant to look into this further. The design, in order to achieve the objective of 4 to 6 hours of resiliency with solar, requires about 1.4 megawatts of solar, about 8 megawatt hours of battery bank. Dana Ivers was willing to work with us to negotiate a land lease, and we're in the process of doing that for the bulk of that on her property. The concept was still to look at the town property such that by using some town property, not only would we potentially get favorable lease option costs, which help enable the success of the economics of the system, such that San Miguel Power could afford, after the grant money, to go out and borrow money and build the system and own it, but also give the town some form of exclusivity to the use of that solar in order to claim it for their own purposes for powering the town facilities, as well as extra for low to middle income use, such similar to our IQ solar array that's out in Norwood, and leftover for some potential subscriptions or participation by folks that might want to use access to that solar array to satisfy potential future requirements for going net zero for new construction. So that was written into the grant. The grant specifically states that we would explore more than one town property. So Green Street is still in play in the planning process. So this was in response to, backing up originally the town's desire to have, walk the talk with some solar. It morphed into a microgrid. The microgrid then enabled a planning grant. The planning grant is the first step to going towards a construction grant, which could potentially buy down the cost of the system to almost 75% buy down with these grant opportunities. So this is all prompted by the the near-term opportunity to leverage both state and federal grant funds. The idea of putting solar on the park originally was just going to be along that south fence. In comes into the process, the master plan process, which didn't exist when we wrote the planning grid. So the discussion then morphed into, you know, where are we gonna put the solar in regards to all of the other stakeholders. DHM did their best to place solar into the plans. Frankly, the two places they chose don't make technical sense for the microgrid. They never consulted with SMPA on that. So they just picked spots and put it in there. I don't like either of them myself. The fourth option that's in the SAB letter shows solar mostly along the southern fence and only about 80 feet wide. So it would only come off 80 feet off the fence and would be potentially berms that you couldn't even see it from the athletic park. So it would be right up against Dana Iver's property. So that's a fourth option that SAB was looking to see if the town wanted to explore with DHM as another option that's not currently presented to the public. SMPA doesn't have any skin in the game as to what the town wants to do. The town doesn't want solar as part of this microgrid, then we will look for other options or we'll eliminate that portion of it on town property. So it's not, you know, I'm not taking it personally as much as you think I am. I'm trying to satisfy the desire of the town. If the town doesn't want this, then we're not going to do it. It's SMPA is here to serve its members, right? So this was one of the ways we were trying to serve the membership by going out and getting grant money to look into this, and then by taking our time and effort to put together options. Like I said, Green Street is still potential. There's still potential to possibly put the whole microgrid on Dana Iver's property. What that would mean for the town would have no participation in the process. They would be an observer or spectator in it, would not have any exclusive access to it. So that's the trade-off. If the town wants some play, they have to put some skin in the game. And if you don't want to put skin in the game, then we'll look at doing the microgrid to the benefit of the town anyway. The microgrid will still provide the 4 to 6 hours of resiliency, just the town won't have any exclusive access to the rights of the solar system. So I'm here to listen to, you know, I read all the comments. Oddly enough, nobody emailed me, which I didn't find actually very odd. But whatever the town decides to do, SMPA will work with what the will of the people are. That's what we're here to do. So putting my town council hat back on, I think from a town council point of view, that based upon our three of our guiding documents, our town master plan, our climate action plan, and our strategic action plan, having solar on town property is very consistent with the outlines in that plan. So when push comes to shove, and now we have an opportunity to do it, an enormous opportunity to access unprecedented grant funding. Town's got to step up and say, all right, you know, we're going to walk the talk or not. So I'm the one voice in the council, and I would like to see some solar as part of the microgrid. Placing part of the solar not co-located with the Dana Ivers is a technical challenge. It costs more, but I believe it's possible. So we could tie the solar system in if we're placed in Green Street on the same circuit with the solar that's in parallel with the battery, such that during an outage, the two separate arrays would feed the outage and would feed the battery bank. It's going to take some more costs, some more controls, and a little bit more engineering, but it's possible. So whatever the town is interested in pursuing, we'll continue to go down the process, go through the process of the planning grant to effective design. Design then leads to costing. The costing leads to pro forma. Pro forma gets put before the board of directors and Senate and power to see if they're interested in financing and building and owning and operating this. And then an RFP would be generated and it goes out to bid. So that's the whole process. And we currently have $45,000 of funding to explore that. And I'm not going to spend the money on the engineering on property more than once. So we need to get what's called site control. We have to get control of the site so that we can then spend money to look at geotech and hydrology studies and things like that in order to properly design the structures. So that's background. That's a little bit of my own opinion. I'm here to support what the town wants, the residents that weighed in, whatever the council chooses. The path that the SAB was looking at was potentially doing a fourth drawing with that on the southern boundary of the park, which just basically eliminates 80 feet of that, the width of the park. the next step in that would be for us to, the SAB or DHM to hold a public hearing to show that design for San Miguel Power to actually, for the first time, present the microgrid project with its benefits, its pros and cons, and then to possibly hold a survey or a vote, a monkey survey to see what the consensus of the entire town is. Most of the people that weighed in on the solar were stakeholders in the issue of the park. Don't represent the entirety of the community. It's those that are interested in how the land of the park plays out. That information would then inform the council as to how to move forward with potentially signing a land lease option. That's the next critical step in the process of getting site control, is for the town to sign a land lease option if in fact we're using town property. I'm happy to answer any questions if that's not clear enough.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, so
Yeah, I got some comments.
yeah,
So on the solar array, again, as we've heard several times, the majority of what we've heard is primarily against it. A lot of it was not against solar, but not in the athletic fields. And so at this point, I think it's you know, again, we've not heard from the entire town, but we've heard from a large portion of people that seem to have a problem with it. I don't know that we actually have the cycles to do a straw poll to see what the rest of the town feels in regards to it. So from what I've heard, I can't see that this would be the appropriate place to put the solar array. Again, I myself am not against it. I think if we put it in Green Street, that'd be awesome, but I don't think it belongs at the ball field. One of the other players that I have yet to hear from in this, and I'm a little concerned about, is the school system itself, and the fact that they feel like the town is putting out a fair amount of money to put in some regulation soccer and baseball fields for high school students. But I'm curious where the school is on this. I know that they have a soccer field. It's regulation size, but they have some issues with it. And the other thing to consider in all this is the town has very little free property or town-owned property that's not already committed for anything. I'm not sure that's quite the case for a high school, so I would really like to get some input from them on, you know, what do they have plans to do anything? Do they intend to chip in if we decide to put in high school fields? I mean, this is for the entire community, but it's for them as well. If we're actually putting in high school reg fields. So I would like to get some input from them on this. Pickleball, I tend to agree with some of the other comments that have come in tonight that, you know, maybe we don't necessarily need 12 new courts. The other concern I have with it is the location where everybody keeps putting it. Everybody thinks if we put it way out in the southeast corner, that's going to be best. Well, that's because you're talking to the people who live in Solar Ranch. It's best for them, but we're also in the process working in annexation and developing a new development right across the county road for the preserve. And so we need to take them into account as well on where we decide to place these. The other thing that needs to be involved with pickleball, with all the information that I've seen and has been provided to us, is the noise. And that's one of the biggest concerns that people who've come to me with. You either have the pickleballers themselves who are extremely adamant about this. You have the people who live nearby going, I can't stand the sound. And you see a lot of news about this and where they've actually closed down courts and gone through various things. At a very minimum, whatever pickleball courts we put in, you need some sort of sound dampening to go there. That needs to be incorporated into the design, as far as I'm concerned. Baseball fields. I like the concept of 2 fields. There was a lot of complaints on the way that was laid out and the way it split the park. Again, if we need 2 fields, depends on whether we need a high school field or not. Same thing with soccer fields. I would like to continue to have similar amount to what we currently have, but we need to work with the appropriate spacing in between and on the sides. And again, the whole school involvement in this thing comes in on this, and whether the town ends up being responsible for providing high school regulation size field. Dog park. I know that was a very popular idea in the top 5 according to the survey that we did. I think the dog park is a good idea. I don't think this is the place to put it, and I would like to see it move up on our capital improvements list. It's off in the 15 or 20-year range right now. I can see it as an ad for the town, but I don't think this is the place to try and squeeze that in. For the most part, people take their dogs out there. Things go along pretty well. We had one person at the first meeting talking about, we have to have this, my dog got attacked. It's not gonna stop a dog attack whether you have a dog park or not. So, I think it's still something we need, but not here. Parking, I don't know that we necessarily need to go pave a parking lot, but the input I got is we need to have it close to the pickleballers, so. I guess it's too much exercise playing pickleball, so you gotta be close. So I would like to see that in the overall design. And then lastly is green space. We did get a fair amount of comments on this. I think there are going to be some concerns people have, especially with fencing. But you know, it's fencing. You can still see the mountains through it. It's not going to completely obstruct your view. As Mr. Clark has said, there's no guarantees of a mountain view in this town. Unless you buy the property across from you, guarantee nobody's gonna build that. So I think, I understand the concerns, but I think they're unfounded at this point. But I would like to see it being very open and a lot of green space, similar to what we have today. Because that's where people use their dog park. I mean, the dog parks don't have to be fenced. I've seen some wonderful ones that weren't, so. That's it.
Sorry, I forgot 2 things. Can I say this?
Yeah, of course, of course.
First, I want to say thank you so much to Pam that we're even having this fight. Thank you for 15 years ago, 20 years ago for having the foresight to work this deal so we have that space.
Probably 30 years.
30 years ago, a minute ago. Yeah, so.
Let's not be her, right?
Second ago. Thank you. And then, I thought about this when the plain dealer covered, the burned down clubhouse up on Log Hill. I'm wondering if the pickleballers have considered purchasing that as it has tennis courts available already right now. I'm very for putting it on this space, but I just want to also be realistic about the timeline about this, because I think it's my interpretation that pickleball wants it today, right now, and it to be done, which cool, I support that. I would love for things to move quickly, but that's not how it works. So I'm wondering if that is another option. That's it. Thank you so much.
I would not let discussions of where the parking lot needs to be driven by any individual user group, because coaches with T-ball players are hauling all of their gear to the field and they would like to be near the parking lot.
Everybody's gonna.
I'm saying, what the point is that the parking lot needs to fit where the parking lot needs to fit in the ways that the park serves the people it needs to serve. Nobody gets to demand and say, parking lot needs to be next to my activity.
Sure. Right. I agree. It's been a good discussion.
Can I also?
Yeah, go ahead.
So resigning myself to the fact that the solar will not be in the park, I have other comments about.
Well, that's just what I was gonna say. It sounds to me like there's consensus about the solar being removed from the plan. I know there's some heartache about that, including myself, but I think given all the input we've had and the fact that we're trying to squeeze a lot of competing uses into that 18 acres, unfortunately, I think it's the best move. That's something that I think, even if we don't decide a lot of other stuff tonight, we can decide that helps us move forward with the rest of the time. So is there consensus on that? Mm-hmm. Grudgingly. I totally get it. And I think it's important that the record shows that we're grudging in our acceptance of that. We, as a council, are strong believers in the need to address climate change ASAP and in any and every way we can, but we also have to balance that with the community's desires for their athletic park. So I get that. All right, so then,
Well, I'll come back to my park comments, but just following on that, if it's out of the park, is there council consensus to further explore the Green Street property or not? Yes, because that was one of the two options written into the planning grant, so we'll focus our efforts on looking at how that technically can work.
and I think
How that costs out.
one of the benefits is that, as Beth started out the conversation, I think we have an argument because there's going to be NIMBYism about that as well. But I think we have a big argument in saying, hey, we pulled it out of the athletic park, but we're going to put it somewhere, and this is the next best option, and that will help us accomplish.
Underscoring the council's desire to have solar on town property.
Absolutely, the master plan talks about it, and the sustainability. Yes, I think that.
I'll take that as directed back to my day job. So that's great, and I'll continue to pursue that. The next step, though, we have some deadlines in the DOLA grant, is to secure site control by December 1st, which means between now and December 1st, I'd like to put the land lease option in front of Bo to review, and we'll start negotiating on what that looks like.
I would say bring to us whatever we need to do at whatever point, but let's do athletic park, because we're told you, we want to discuss Green Street, but let's not get into those details.
No, I
now.
just said that's the next
Yeah,
step. That has to be forthcoming in the next couple of months, otherwise I'm gonna miss.
There's a timeline. I get it.
Now, my comments regarding the park, I too don't see benefit in the dog park being located on the athletic park. I have a big dog. I sometimes take him to the dog park, and it's usually a very unpleasant place. Usually filled with the smell of urine, they're confined. It's the same issue with my dog being on a leash. He gets more anxious when he's confined, whether it's on a leash or otherwise. So I agree that if it's a town priority, that we should continue to look for it. I don't think, like the solar, that it belongs in the athletic park. In terms of pickleball, I actually, in full disclosure, played in the tournament that had utilized 7 spaces. The three that were down on the basketball court just flat out sucked. I hadn't played on it before. My feet hurt. It's not the place to play pickleball. 6 to 8 courts is what I would recommend that we entertain. They used 7 in the tournament, and they were packed. And there was 150 people, I think. Might have been slightly less than that. It probably brought in a lot of revenue to the town. Every time I go to practice in the mornings, they're utilizing the entire tennis court with overflow onto the pickleball court, and that's just with a casual get together. So, that's typically 6 courts they're using just for recreation play. So I think my recommendation would be the town look at doing 6 to 8 courts. Probably my preference, like most people in the comments, would be to put it in the southeast corner, as far away from the residents as possible, both for noise and possibly berm around it or create a sound buffer, whether it be vegetation or otherwise, in order to further restrict the noise and visibility. So those are my comments. I don't have significant opinions on baseball or the soccer field layout. I agree with many of the comments about not having the soccer fields such that the ball is going to be kicked into the next court, but that's not my forte. So I'm going to leave it to DHM to figure out how to solve that issue.
Okay.
I'm gonna jump on, not on with the SAB hat on, but then just as from council side.
Yep.
I'm also into the reduction of pickleball courts down to the 6 to 8. I think that's reasonable, especially if we've now consented to not pursue the added acreage for microgrid. Question about the education side of things, and if we have a regulation size ball field there, also asking the question about parking. Does that mean then we have to accommodate for school buses coming in? From, if that's gonna be a destination spot
We already get school buses coming into existence.
for soccer.
Yeah.
That's happened for that. So it'd just be a change of seasons for the same kind of scenario. But I don't know if there's anything specific in design that has to be questioned by DHM.
Yeah. I'm assuming DHM has the experience to address that. So,
And then on that note, just going back to the question about education and their skin in the game for all of this and the community members. I would love to see an inventory of what the school system has for land. And ask why it hasn't been explored there as well. I think we need to direct it to reach out and get a specific answer on that ASAP.
totally agree.
Before we give up the limited amount of property the town owns right now.
Yeah, I think we need to get the school at the table.
Yeah.
ASAP. I think, while I totally respect superintendent's use of the old baseball field as an outdoor education space, particularly during COVID. They planted trees in the outfield, they put concrete and posts in for their shade structures in the infield. I totally understand that, but I think it's a sort of a misguided thing when you think about the fact that that's an existing field that could be used for little league and whatnot. And you could probably rearrange some things so that it can still do both. Right now, from what I reached out to Susan just to have a short conversation, and she said there's no interest at the elementary right now in doing anything but what they're doing right now. But I think we need to continue to have that discussion and point out the fact that we're putting significant time, effort, and funds into expanding and doing more at our existing athletic park, and all of their students are going to take advantage of that, and we need to be the cooperative entities that we've been all these years in pursuing these things. So, there's been some discussion about the soccer field at the high school being just really not playable, that it's never been, ever since they first built it, it's chunky and lumpy and not playable. There was some talk at the very beginning of this process, possibly actually pursuing artificial turf out there, which would be great for water, for not using water on it, but artificial turf has all sorts of issues about injuries and things like that.
Sure.
But the bottom line is we need to get them at the table and be having more discussions about all these issues and how we can get them to cooperate so that we get the best of both worlds with the property that they have. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I'd be interested, not just in the actual acreage in the inventory, but in the demographics of what we're looking at in terms of school prospects for growth over decadal discussion.
Yeah, good point.
Because they need to think about that in terms of providing on their land, and lumpy, and it sounds like lumpy ground sounds like good land for another consideration for
Solar group.
You know, I know we're all, the school district has some land. I do think it'd be lovely to bring them to the table in terms of sustainability discussion. Because on the flip side, we talk about special things about Ridgway. A regulation baseball field and the high school soccer field being in our athletic park is so much more central to the town and the community. People just seeing kids out doing what they're doing. You only see our high school soccer field up at the school if you go to the high school soccer field. This puts our kids doing the thing that they do and love to do right in the heart of our community. You pass by, you see it, you're reminded that it's important.
That's a good point.
So we can hem and haw what we would like. I would love to, we have put the soccer field in here. Is it a possibility that we could emphasize solar on other property around the school? That'd be amazing. I don't know if Susan is going to be interested or the school board would be interested, but I think it's worth a conversation. But I do think we don't want to lose sight of the fact that this is actually, once we get through this process, a really cool thing that is very much Ridgway.
Very much. Yeah. Agreed. So maybe we just kind of take things one at a time as they come up. Is there consensus about the dog? I agree that the dog park should be located elsewhere. It's a use that we need, and it's been discussed many times over the last decade. But even though there was a strong weigh in on the strong support for it on the survey, it's not this isn't the best place. We're trying to address all the other things. So let the record show for staff that we think that the dog park is a no-go. Next up, I think I agree with the couple comments made that pickleball courts, let's go with 8 instead of 12.
Eight's a great number.
I think that, and then I like the idea that you brought up of a lot of the players in the pickleball club are from Oak Hill. It makes perfect sense for them to develop some pickleball courts up there, and there's existing tennis courts there where they could do that. It's a great idea. I don't know who owns that. It's probably a big ball of wax, but it should be looked into. So, and that can be part of our suggestion too.
Or other locations.
Yeah.
On the,
If they need to develop beyond 8.
Well, and
Maybe your rate wants to do so.
yeah, I mean, your race should build something, and Log Hill's a great place for some. So
Ice rink.
but when we talk about going with 8, are we talking about 8 new ones, or are we also utilizing? ones that already
no,
exist?
the tennis courts, in my view, should be tennis courts.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm just trying to understand where we're headed.
That's, I think there's consensus there that the whole point of building dedicated pickleball courts is so that the tennis courts don't have to get used for them. It's really interesting to me how little we've heard from tennis players. Well, I know, I walk by there all the time. There are people playing tennis, not a lot. And I think there will be more as time goes on, because some of our youth is gonna get into tennis. And the existing courts that we have are beautiful, they're nice. I'm told that they need to be resurfaced, but that's a whole other ball away. But I think that the goal of putting 8 dedicated pickleball courts in is that the tennis courts revert to just being tennis courts and the basketball court is just a basketball.
Agreed.
So I think we're getting somewhere with some feedback on what the council wants. You got questions?
Thank you. This has been awesome. Do you mind if I just go down this list?
No.
To see if we're all.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wrap up. So one of the things that I didn't hear anybody talk about, and I haven't heard anybody write about, JT remembered, was that we actually have an existing lease for a pump truck. And that's just kind of, I mean, there's been talk of a bike track, but we have an existing lease.
Is it an existing lease? Is it?
It's an existing lease for that certain section. I guess it's towards the southeast corner of the
Right.
park with,
Weeds.
yeah, just weeds. And it's with the nonprofit that Matt and the guys that developed, and Matt and his crew, they've been participants at every public forum. They just haven't made any headway in the last few years in fundraising, or they made some headway in fundraising, my understanding is, but they haven't gotten to a point in order to deploy the funding and construct that bike park. So.
Yeah, I guess my concern though is if they're actually following through on their lease agreement, then we can't just disregard that and that go away. So it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, he's, as Preston said, Matt has been at all these public meetings, and I've heard more than once that he said while he's not thrilled about moving it from where he wanted to put it, he's open. And he still wants to do it, but he's had trouble gaining.
Understand.
And he has been at Parks, Trails and Open Spaces meetings. Lots of
Yeah,
those.
sounds like he's got an interest. I just want to make sure we're not leaving anybody hanging.
From what I understand, he's okay with a different location from what. And it makes sense for it to be an option to be in a different location based on all these other pieces of the puzzle that you're looking at.
There's definitely a flexibility there, but that's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point. So.
Thanks.
I'll just go through this list real quick, and if I didn't capture something and you want to bring it up, please, by all means, I didn't leave anything out. Concentration on open concept, green space. One of the more initial comments was parking closer to pickleball. I'm hearing consensus in keeping it more central as possible. I just gotta say, Terry, when you got like 14 thumbs up, like in half a second right there, I've been doing this a long time, never gotten direction like that. That was unbelievable. Yeah, just shot their thumbs up. Dog park, removed from the plan and look at somewhere else, perhaps here, coming budget retreat. School districts, just to be clear, Susan Lacey, Russell Randolph, Sean Rowe, who's the AD, they've been invited to participate in this process. DHM has met with them, at least on one occasion. I think it was in a Zoom room. And Sean has been at the public forums, but I don't want to speak for the school district, but you guys make some really good points. They really should be here to be able to talk, for themselves on why they haven't been willing to put so much concentration on developing the land they have and why the focus is on the town. So you all make some great points. We can make sure that either Susan or Russell or Sean can talk to that specifically, maybe at a future meeting. Solar takeout, already gotten direction to look to concentrate on Green Street Park for that. Concentrate on some sort of plan, stick a pin in the Green Street Park plan. That might be a budget retreat type topic, and the whole sustainability realm in that part of town. Accommodate the appropriate spacing, not just for soccer, but for baseball as well. Pickleball courts, we're up 4 to 6 and then 6 to 8. Now I have 8 circled. Sound dampening or some sort of barrier for pickleball.
And let me just add there that, if we stick with putting the now 8 courts in that southeast corner, I've been involved in a couple discussions at the last couple meetings about how we would need to probably set them back off the county road enough to have a berm with some sound dampening. Drugs or whatever, fence or to reduce the impact of the noise to the preserve once it gets developed.
Okay.
We haven't talked about the Little League field in addition to the high school baseball field, and I would hope that with deleting the dog park and reducing that pickleball court, that we would really look at doing that. In the same slew of having a U6 soccer through high school and developing that process. If we're successful in bringing a high school baseball team to the county, not having a Little League field is going to kneecap the ability to have a high school team in the long run.
Right.
So I think as we've made some deletions, I think re-upping that commitment to it being an athletic park is important.
Yeah. Side note, it's interesting how some of the letter writers either aren't aware of how popular baseball has become with the youth recently, or are hopefully misinformed about. One of the comments was that it was a boys only sport. I bet you really enjoyed it. That's the way I read it. It seemed really odd. But yeah, I think there's some pushback in the comments we've gotten about baseball, but it's apparent to me that it's really taken off, and there's a lot of kids involved with more coming up, a lot of parent support. So it's interesting.
Little League fields also are amazing softball size fields for high school, so those overlap really well.
The one letter that suggested we align it, the Little League field to where it could possibly be the kids' soccer field too sometime.
I didn't catch
Does
that
that
one.
work? Would that work?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, the nice thing about like the option 3 drawing is it has the ability to have a permanent fence, which Little League fields never get to have a permanent fence. Softball, like girls softball fields never get to have a permanent fence. And it always feels a little bit crummy because those high school boys, they get a permanent fence. And the way it's aligned right now, it would be more parity. But it everywhere, it happens commonly, but it's just something to consider.
Yeah, the permanent fence aspect of the baseball fields is a roadblock, is an impediment to the use of it, but I get it, it's part of the sport, so.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I mean, like I said, plenty of the times you play without a permanent fence, the temporary fencing happens. It just, when you get to play on one as a kid that has a permanent fence, you feel pretty darn cool.
Point taken.
That was my list.
Oh, that was everything.
So yeah, and if I missed something, please help. But I think we got some really solid direction. Really appreciate the conversation.
I have one quick question.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
No, go ahead.
Lighting in all these places, is any of this meant to be night use as well?
It hasn't been discussed. I've met a couple of dark sky compliant athletic field lighting vendors at recent like CMO conferences and gotten people reaching out. I know that the 4-H is exploring arena lighting for the arena down at the 4-H. At some point, yes, I think at some point we're going to want lighting down there. I'd say that's long term.
Gotcha. That question was raised to me today. Somebody asking if the basketball courts were gonna get lights, and then it brought up the question about tennis courts, et cetera. So just, that might be for the weeds down there. I just didn't, it kind of got lost.
Let's put it, make a note put a pin in that.
That's gonna generate another series of.
To have it at least on the list for long term.
And I think, yeah, well, we discussed it long term, but there's a big difference between just passively lighting a tennis court for if someone wanted to use, or a basketball court for if someone wanted to use, versus we're turning the lights on because we have the league championship baseball game, we want to play it at 7 o'clock. Like, those are two different things for community members, because yeah, it's on, but we know it's gonna get turned off.
I just know that.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a thing.
Guys, it's gonna be a
It's
conversation
gonna be a thing.
and energy and all of that.
And water usage with the vegetation. I know that may have been brought up a few times, that it does look nice with all the trees drawn in all over the place, but that's another conversation.
Just a little SMPA perspective on the lights. In the situation of lights at the San Miguel County Fairgrounds, that arena. The lights throw their account into a demand charge, which raises the electric bill considerably. And so it's been a challenge to go there and mitigate the lighting so that it doesn't pop it into this higher bracket of expenses. So if the town is looking at, currently all the electricity is at the pavilion, and currently there's solar covering all the electricity at the pavilion. So when you start bringing in more electrical requirements, you're also looking at a bill, much higher town bill for that. Requiring more solar, of course.
Yeah.
We're gonna make the baseball field walls, the fences out of solar panels.
There you go. So pretty cool. Actually, the way this works, it wouldn't be too terrible.
That's my vision.
I want to open it up to the audience. Come on up, Linda. And anybody on Zoom who wants to weigh in as well.
Good evening. My name is Linda Browning, and I live at 596 Sabeta Drive. If you're not familiar with that, it borders the westerly boundary of the athletic field. And we did make a comment about on behalf of our condo association. It's a set of 7 condos. But the reason I'm here is to bring to your attention, because it's recently been brought to my attention personally, that we have very high groundwater levels. And you know what? Water goes downhill. That is one fact that everyone has agreed with me on. And I'm at the bottom of Solar Ranch. I've owned my place since 2005. I have never had water in my crawl space until this year. There is water, it's not standing, but if you drive down Sabeta Drive, there's a very wet spot outside my driveway. There is standing water in the vacant lot next to me that has never been there before. I've done a lot of research over the last 2 weeks trying to find the source of this water. And it all comes back that it's the groundwater. I have the information about the monitoring wells and where the groundwater level is. And when I was talking to Randy about all of these issues, I said, well, has anybody asked you about the groundwater as it relates to the changes they want to make on the athletic park? And he basically said, well, not really. And I said, well, somebody needs to bring it to their attention. And I think whatever is done on the athletic park, that a hydrologist or somebody who knows about water flows is consulted, because whatever you do there, if it backs more water up to those homes on the westerly boundary, it's creating a problem for us. And that's what I keep being told, is that it's groundwater and that we're at the highest level. And from the monitoring wells, that supports it for the monitoring well right there at the path going on to the soccer field. It is at the very highest level, 1.37 feet below the ground. That's all I have to say. Please consider water.
Thanks, Linda. Anyone else have questions, comments? Either in the room or on Zoom? All right. You've got enough direction, Preston? Thank you. Cool. That takes us to Policy matter number 5, resolution number 23-13, extending the receipts of waste, refuse, and recycling services from Bruin Waste Management. See Chris Trosper's in the audience. Preston, you want to introduce this?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, as you said, before you is a resolution extending the professional services agreement between the town and Bruin Waste Management. The agreement was slated to expire this past summer. I think it was in June. And it was extended by you all through October 16th. So in a couple days time, after a lot of consideration and some conversations with Chris Trosper that is here today at Bruin Waste. Staff and Bruin have come to agreement on extending the agreement for a period of 2 years while making some modifications to the scope of services. And again, Chris is here to talk to some of these elements, but I'll go through this list real quick if you don't mind. Resolution, if approved, would do a few things. Again, approved as written. It would extend the term of the agreement to October 15th of 2025. It would modify the town services section to include a fifth 30 cubic yard container for the town's annual spring cleanup day solely for the purpose of collecting recycled metal. We tried that out last year for the first time. It seemed to be well received. And also to change the 2 3 cubic yard containers 1 time per week at our public works yard facility to 1 6 cubic yard container 1 time per week. And also it would modify the base monthly charges section to account for a 5% increase to all waste and recycling categories. Would also modify the tipping fee surcharge section to account for the increase to the landfill tipping fee, given what the economics are doing and inflation and such. And again, Chris is here. You can talk to that if you all have specific questions about that. All remaining terms of the agreement would remain as is. And from staff's perspective, things have been going very well with Bruin. They've been a great partner over the years. Chris has been very attentive when we have things come up. Just give him a call. And again, I invite him to come up if you'd like to talk specifically about the increases on the rates or to provide an update on the pilot program for compost, which we talked about a couple times.
I was going to ask about that. Welcome, Chris.
Mayor and council, thanks for having me. Chris Trosper with Bruin Waste. Been doing town's trash for quite a few years, 20 years now.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, so I guess we just extended it, which is fine. We kind of missed the date, I think, as much as anything. I know I did. But if that works for you guys, if you guys have any questions on how it came to those numbers.
The only question I have is, every year I'm down there helping with the spring cleanup, and it seems like every year we have a little bit less as the town kind of catches up. It seems like we had an extra container this year that didn't get full, or
we generally fill 3 and have a 4th with just a portion in it. We take that container down to the yard and you guys continue to utilize that throughout the year, and then we pull it whenever it gets. Yeah.
So I was wondering if we really need the one specific to metal needs to be a 5th, or whether it could just be one of the 4. I suppose if you're okay with making it a 5th, it's nice to have the option to make sure we have enough space.
Yeah, I would keep it as an option.
Okay, sounds good.
You know, if we don't use the 4th, it's not that big a deal.
Okay. I'm very excited to hear what you're thinking about the compost program.
So Bruin was awarded a grant from CDPHE for composting program for the area. The grant was specifically for some trucks, some containers, and equipment to do this program. We're working with 3XM Grinding in Olathe, who has the compost yard. Our pilot program was set to kick off this month, and one of our trucks caught on fire coming out of Telluride, and so that slowed our pilot program because that was the truck that was going to be used for the pilot program. We're still waiting for the truck to come in. It's due in February for the compost truck. But I think we'll go ahead and get the pilot program kicked off. We're starting the pilot program in Telluride with commercial restaurants, maybe some residential. We're gonna start off small, see what kind of numbers we get, see what kind of volumes we get. Work through the education process with that and then ramp up from there and out. So we'll be coming this direction, Ray as well. Silverton's excited. They want to participate. Telluride and Mountain Village.
Great.
As of right now.
Great.
Is that a restaurant by restaurant opt-in?
For the pilot, we've gone around and asked a handful of them, but yeah, as we open it up, it will be opt-in.
You're familiar with Dirty Sturdy's, Mark Sturdy's?
You bet.
Are you working with him at all?
Yeah, we've had some meetings with him and trying to see how we can work together on that.
Great.
I think the one thing that we have right now is the ability to do larger volumes, but he's been doing good too. I mean, he's really ramped it up.
Yeah. So he's doing great. Anybody else have questions?
You said there was an increase in these numbers? 5% increase or something?
Yeah, 5% to the waste and all four waste and then the recycling category.
So in the original contract in 2018, there were escalators written into that we didn't ever take. And the tipping fee at the landfill being the one that we increased on.
Okay.
And question about 3XM grinding out in, you say, where is it?
Olathe.
And so where are they sending their product? Is that a retail product?
Yeah, they actually produce the compost there. They take in green waste as well. They have the water and the state permit. It's a tier 3, I guess is how they list that for composting specifically. And then they will have compost available to purchase too, if you guys have a need for that. And one thing we've been working with them for all these areas is doing a backhaul of bulk compost.
Cool.
A backhaul to the communities?
Yep.
So with our air resistant trash cans, are there smaller cans that your trucks can pick up? Like, I'm a single person in a single household. As we move to potentially having composting and recycling, my 64, a big trash can is a little overkill, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people. I would buy another one if you had a half-size trash can. Do those exist? Could that be an option for consumers?
The next size down on the bear resistant ones are the 32s.
Mm-hmm.
We don't offer them within that contract. We can
I'm just
look at it.
I don't know if it's totally necessary, but
Yeah, we just kind of tried to hit the
I only
average.
put my trash can in every other week.
Yeah.
It's silly.
I'm waiting, some months we can put it out once a month.
Yeah, well, I put it out every other week just so it goes away.
So it doesn't smell.
Yeah. In the winter time, oh, I
This
do.
was an issue, as you remember, when we first talked about,
Yeah,
consolidating and centering on one can. that you guys
just kind of hit the average.
It continues to be an issue for some of the residents, but I think everybody's
Yeah.
pretty much okay with it.
It's fine. I just thought that.
Probably worth talking about it again at some point.
And just one more question on those 64 gallons, are all the trucks set up that they can actually pick those up? Is that the current process or?
Yeah, they, not all of our trucks, I would say the majority of our trucks have the tipper on the back of them where it grabs the container.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that with the 64 gallons, I've had other people over at my house and they will go out and just throw stuff in there. And if you don't have the tipper on there, they come by and they pick out the bags and then there's a bunch of trash.
Right.
And so it's a matter of us knowing the right thing to do, but at the same time, I had never seen one actually pick up until about a week or two ago. So kind of curious, and that's why I was asking.
Yeah, like I say, most all the trucks have the tipper on them. And even the ones that don't, if they are on that particular truck. I remind them and tell them to, tip. Look at what you're doing, and if there's loose in the bottom, tip it, or, tip it
Usually they
so
can
often, because
Put it on the lip of the truck.
yeah, they can just,
Even if it doesn't have-
because they do it with the 64s and the 96s, it's.
Right. It seems to me from my experience watching him sometimes is some of the guys, they learn at my house anyway, that I've got compostable trash bags in there, that they try and pull them out and throw them, the trash goes everywhere. It cleans up after that, so I think they learn after one time.
Yeah.
But, no, you guys have been a great partner on trash and recycling, I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys.
Anybody have any questions on Zoom or here in the room?
I just want to say, Chris, tell your guys that I am repeatedly impressed at how nice the street and cans look after pickup. And I know this sounds silly and it's ridiculous, but as someone who's kind of anal and OCD about little things, to walk out and see all the trash cans in a line,
It's really nice.
it's really kind of nice.
It's-
So
yeah.
props to you. I'm over in Chipeta,
Okay.
so props to your guys or whoever's
Yeah.
doing.
I will let them know every once,
Please do.
we get out of practice every once in a while, but I generally get a call, so.
I was gonna say, it does happen sometimes, but for the most part, you guys do it really great.
It's much appreciated.
Keep it up.
Thank you. I'll let them know. All right, thank you.
We need a motion for this, right?
I'll move to extend the PSA agreement with modifications to the proposed. Next sufficient.
Approve the resolution.
Approve the resolution, sorry. The resolution addresses the extension.
I think that works.
Okay. Second motion made by Terry, seconded by JT. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to a bunch of public hearings, not a bunch, we've got 3 public hearings tonight. First one is final plat for subdivision and planned unit development, town of Ridgway, block 30, lots 1 through 12. Applicant Ridgway Homes LLC, owner Ridgway Homes LLC. This is the Wetterhorn Homes project. Welcome, Paul. TJ, you gonna kick this off?
Good evening, everyone.
Hello?
Hey, TJ.
Hey, okay, gosh. I have things set up, I promise. Skip that. Let's just trying to get my correct screen on. Let me go ahead and share screen 2. Move that over here. Move. There we go. Can you see that now?
Nope.
No.
Oh, I guess I need to click share. Sorry, there we go.
There you go.
Details.
Now, I do have to apologize. You can probably tell I'm a little under the weather right now. I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so I apologize for coughing or whatever, but it's probably better that I'm not there. So yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'll go ahead and kick it off here if you'd like. And so we do have 2 hearing items. The first of which is Wetterhorn Homes subdivision. This is a final plat and a PUD. What I'm going to do is, I know most of you are very familiar with it. This is also the final plat. It's been through a few processes already. So I'm going to go through pretty high level, just touch on some of the things that we need to, just in case there's some new viewers, people at home, or to kind of remind you of the project overview. And then we'll have some time after if you'd like to ask some questions or follow up. There's a lot more detail in the staff report though. And then I do know that the applicant is here and owner to give a presentation as well. So with that, here's our general process for the public hearing. We'll start with the staff report, and then there'll be an opportunity for public comment down the road a little bit here after the applicant presents, and then deliberation and discussion. So first, the owners are Ridgway Homes LLC, Dan Burkhart. Burkhart Planning and Permitting is the applicant on this project. Just by way of reminder, this received sketch plan approval by the Planning Commission back in May of 2022 and preliminary plat approval in May and July of 2022. You may remember that we had to amend the sketch plan after it was originally approved to its current format. So that's why the sketch and the preliminary were approved at the same time. It's kind of the second time around. So the property is just under an acre. It's zoned HR, historic business, residential. It is classified as town core neighborhood in the future land use. And then just some of the logistics that we need to make sure we get on there. All application materials have been submitted. It's been deemed complete. Hearing noticing for the hearing has been done in compliance with the Ridgway Municipal Code, and no public comments have been received as of the drafting of the staff report, and to my knowledge, prior to tonight. Also of note that because this was an application that was still in process or has been in process, we during the time that the code was amended, we're reviewing this under the previous code, not the current code process and standards that were recently adopted this last July. So just by way of summary, there are 14 residential lots. That's in 7 units or 7 structures, each of them being a duplex. There is one tract for stormwater and detention, public improvements, as many of you have probably encountered over the last number of months. Lots of water improvements, roadways improvements, and sewer extensions. This is also a PUD, and we're doing something a little bit different on this one, where we're separating out the PUD from the subdivision. So it's what we call a PUD guide that acts as the zoning standards, if you will, for the project. And then that includes a development plan, kind of the site plan for what's being developed, and that all works in concert with the site plan, the plat. So just into some of the analysis, the high level analysis. These are all single family attached. They're referred to as townhomes in the code. So we have 7 townhome structures with a maximum of 2 stories each. The master plan does have this identified as a maximum of 12 dwelling units per acre, with the 14 units on just less than 1 acre. It's about 14 units per acre. Excuse me. But this was approved and this was presented and approved through the sketch plan and preliminary plat processes. And so it essentially was allowing to increase the density by that amount, simply because of the affordable component of it. With that, the affordable housing, I won't get into this much at all. You're all very well aware that this is 100% affordable. These are how they're going. And I know that most of the units have been sold or transferred, maybe not transferred yet, but we have lovely homeowners who have received those homes. So it's very exciting to see. Just a couple of, again, reminders, if you will, that with the PUD, you can amend the zoning standards, and these are the deviations that are being amended through the PUD. The big one here is that in the previous code, prior to the updates we did earlier this year, there was no provision for a 0-foot lot line or 0-foot setback on a party wall between the units. So we're the bottom row there, side setbacks, where it does require 3 feet. We're doing basically a variance for each of the lot lines between the units. And then some of the lot size requirements are not being met, simply because of the density and kind of the design and of the character of the neighborhood. So this is just a summary of those dimensional standards that aren't being met. However, again, just so you're aware, approval of the PUD approves these variances. Similarly, access and parking. We have most of the units are accessed off the alley to the, actually that's east is down, north is to the right. So most of the units in the green are accessed off the alley. We have a couple off of Frederick and Otto Street. And all of those are generally able to be, those parking requirements are able to be met. The two exceptions being the two units that access Laura Street to the west, lot 1 and lot 11, there's only enough space for one off-street parking space. So that would require any other vehicle to be parked on public streets where they legally can. I'll get to it in a little bit, but Laura might be, yeah. And so with that being said, Laura Street to the east there, kind of the top of the diagram, is only a half-width right-of-way. It's a gravel drive with attached sidewalks. So with that, there's no on-street parking allowed. Otto Street to the right of the slide, or the north, 32 foot, and those meet town standards as far as width. But you might also recall that there were some waivers provided to allow gravel streets rather than pavement to reduce some of the cost. The SIA, which, well, yeah. So a lot of this has, for a half a block development, there's a lot of public infrastructure required. And so the town did secure some funding through DOLA for that, and helped with some of those costs. But a lot of water and sewer main lines needed to be extended around, kind of the horseshoe, if you will. Same with a lot of stormwater management, and then of course the roadways. And so what is atypical on this project is that typically all of these public improvements are completed prior to the submittal of the final plat. But given some of the constraints of the timelines, most of these are being included in the SIA, and I know you have that on your agenda later on this evening on the SIA. So just know that this is somewhat atypical in that most of the public improvements, although I know the applicant, the developer, contractor are diligently working on it and probably going to be making completing them in short order. I think we are covering most of the improvements in the SIA just so that we can move forward with the approvals. So I already mentioned that. And so on August 29th, the Planning Commission considered this application in a public hearing, and following that, they recommended approval of the applications, both the plat and the PUD, with these 3 conditions. And similarly, staff does recommend approval of the final plat and the PUD for Wetterhorn Home subdivision, with the following conditions. 1, an executed Mylar of the final plat be submitted to the town for final execution and recording with the Ouray County Clerk and Recorder. 2, the subdivision improvement agreement be approved by the town council. And 3, all comments in the staff report, staff review letter dated August 25th be adequately addressed prior to recording the final plat. So that is all that I have on this. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I know the applicant and owner are here to discuss it as well. Thanks.
Thanks, TJ. You got anything you want to add, Paul? Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I think TJ, covered it very well, all the mechanics. I just wanted to give you a couple updates on where we are in the process and trying to get to the finish line. First of all, I do appreciate the town adapting their process to our approach. In other words, This was trying to, get the project done in a timely manner and doing it by doing, offsite construction for the homes, building the infrastructure simultaneously. So frankly, we can get people into their homes. So we are in the final hurrah or the final lap of this. We're continuing to do site, flat work out there, the sidewalks, some curb and gutter, finishing up the road design, which I think we have resolved. Solar is going in starting this week. We have 12 homeowners under contract, ready to go. We have 2 houses left to sell, and we have multiple people looking at those houses. And so we expect to have all 14 under contract and ready to go. Water meters were installed today. All the houses are powered up. Appliances are being moved in. So we're literally right at the finish of these houses, and we'll start to do final cleaning next week. Just so you know, the mechanics of what happens with the closing and why it's so important to get the final plat approval is obviously once we record that, and we get COs, we will probably start calling for the request for certificate of occupancies around October 23rd. So once we have the final plat COs, then essentially we can move forward with appraisals and then finally closing and move in. So our goal is to get people moved in by November 1. We have people living in temporary housing, Airbnbs, I think couch surfing. So we really want to get them into their houses. I think that's really it, unless you've got questions for me.
Great, thanks, Paul. Anybody have any questions for Paul or for staff? We're excited to see this project come to a conclusion.
Well, I would like to offer a tour, have everybody come by, see the houses when they're done, see the neighborhood. And for sure, we want to do a, community celebration. Right now, we're, focused on
Nose on grindstone, getting it done.
Yep.
Yeah, I was excited to see how far along the roads it's coming. In the last week or so, so that's great.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion up here? Somebody want to make a motion?
Did you open the public hearing?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. This is a public hearing, so I need to, thanks for the reminder, Preston. Need to open it up to any public comment, either here in the room or on Zoom. Give it a second. If anybody's having trouble raising their hand on Zoom, just go ahead and unmute yourself if you got a question or comment. Seeing none and no hands up here in the room, I'll close the public comment period and bring it back up here for deliberation.
I move to approve the final plat and final PUD for Wetterhorn Home subdivision, finding that the criteria set forth in section 7-4-5C9 of the Ridgway Municipal Code have been met. And with the following conditions, an executed Mylar of the final plat be submitted to the applicant by the applicant to the town for the final execution and recording with the Ridgway County Clerk and Recorder. 2, the subdivision improvement agreement be approved by town council. And 3, all the comments in the staff review letter dated August 25th, 2023 be adequately addressed prior to recording of the final plat with the Ridgway County Clerk and Recorder.
Second. All right, motion made by Beth, seconded by Russ. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. One more step. All right, that takes us to item number 7, final plat and subdivision, final plat for subdivision and planned unit development. Lot 1, triangle subdivision, general commercial zone. Applicant Tom Kennedy, law offices of Thomas G. Kennedy, owner J. Cancer, Alpine Homes, Ridgway LLC. TJ, are you kicking this one off as well?
Yep, this one will be me too. You would think I'd have everything set up from last time. There we go. Okay. There we go. Now I gotta share. Right, Sharon. There we go. All right. So, thank you, Mayor. As mentioned, this is very similar to what we just did. It's a final plat and a PUD. Camera's kind of, well, just having lots of technical difficulties this evening. My apologies.
You're doing great.
So similarly, though, we've gone through this quite a few times, or at least talked about it for a little bit. So I'm going to kind of I'm going to try to go over big picture again, identify some of the major components, go through pretty quickly. There's a lot more detail in the staff report. Happy to answer any questions you all might have. Again, the owner and the applicant are here to give a presentation as well. We're going to follow the same process we just did. So just some background. This is what's referred to as the triangle lot over on the corner, kind of the area of Highway 550 and 62. It's a portion of lot 1. It's currently zoned general commercial, and it comprises about 4.29 total acres. The project is proposing 3 multi-family buildings. And if you can see my mouse, there's 1, 2, and 3. 1 mixed-use building, which is this one up here, and about 4,000 square feet of commercial, which is also in that mixed-use building, which is 4 units, and we'll show some elevations later on. And then a total of 38 residential units, and that includes some of these duplexes that we're referring to as townhomes along kind of the river there, the riverside. So that is the west side is down, north is to the left. This project also includes internal roadways, water and sewer that we'll get into a little bit later on. That some of those will be public, some of those will be private. A lot of the surface improvements will be privately owned and maintained. There's also a river trail and a park proposed in the development. So that's kind of the summary. So the master plan calls it out as 12 to 18 dwelling units per acre. They're proposing about 9, so they're a little bit lower, but there's some community benefit in there. 3 stories are being max proposed, and the primary uses are retail, offices, commercial, and restaurants. All of this is consistent with the master plan goals. And there's a lot more detail in the staff report. Well, I guess it's not currently anymore. Currently, the site is under construction, but it's vacant. This should actually be 38 single-family dwelling units. Again, the PUD allows for the opportunity to allow all uses by right, as well as conditional uses in the underlying zone district by right. And so conditional uses or conditional approvals that are being permitted in the PUD are both townhomes, as well as the multifamily buildings that are greater than 10,000 square feet, and multifamily buildings that are over 35 feet in height. So I'm sorry, not over 27 feet in height with a maximum height of 35 feet. So those 3 components are being approved, if you will, through the PUD process. As mentioned, there's a river trail. It's on between the development and the east side of the river. And there's also a pedestrian trail. You might recall or remember that there used to be a social trail kind of through this property going from crossing 550 over to the river to get people to downtown. So the development has formalized that along the southern property boundary to provide that access. And then short-term rentals in the proposal are limited to townhomes only. And just to clarify that those townhomes are the duplex townhome units on the west side of the project adjacent to the river. Those are the only ones that would be defined as townhomes. Similarly, we were just talking about dimensional standards may be amended through the PUD process. The ones that are highlighted in red are the ones where there's deviations from the required dimensional standards. Just of note, the high water mark setback. There is an allowance to reduce that setback from the high water mark in the code, and they've the project has been reviewed against those standards, and staff is comfortable with the setbacks proposed. But those are, again, just want to make sure that everybody's aware that of those deviations. Approximately 11, almost 12% of the property is slated for public use, and that includes that park, the trail, and the access easement. All of those areas, though, the developer will retain ownership of and just provide a public access easement for those. The park that's going to be on that north corner, kind of that north triangle, is being proposed as passive, which means it's a shelter and there's no real activity on it. So, ball fields or anything like that, just a place to come and sit and whatnot. So a passive park. And as mentioned, the pedestrian access easement along the southern property boundary. And I think I have a slide somewhere coming up, probably coming up here real soon on the circulation that can highlight that a little bit. So parking is being proposed in multiple ways: surface parking, garage parking, as well as some guest parking. The commercial uses were the parking requirements for the commercial uses were based on 1 square foot per, one space for 250 square feet of retail space or commercial space. And that seems to be a pretty good number for the potential uses coming in there. And so again, most of all of the proposed parking spaces meet the dimensional standards, the design standards of the town. And here you go. So if you can kind of see all my little diagrams, the first, the green, the major green stars are access points. This one on the south side, which is kind of the top of the slide here, is the emergency access easement. So it's secondary and emergency only. There will be a gate. The kind of the orange reddish shade, or kind of around that top left, top right side of the slide, is emergency access. All of the blue squares or rectangles there are surface parking, and then all of the blue stars are garage parking. So again, you can see there's a multitude of access, circulation, and parking opportunities. Doing the calculations, all the minimum requirements are being met. Excuse me. The water service is proposed to be an 8-inch looped main that will connect to the existing main to the south of the property. The sewer service is also an 8-inch main that will be connected to the 15-inch main south of the property, and that 15-inch main is also being extended to the east, to the west side of 550, to be able to be expanded into the future. Of note here, and I get into more detail in the staff report with it, but the portions of what you're seeing here on this diagram is the sewer lines, and the areas that are kind of highlighted in red there are portions of the sewer line which have not been accepted by town staff, and I'll let the applicant get into a little bit more on that if needed. But those are portions of the sewer line that will not be dedicated or accepted by the town. They'll be owned and maintained by the applicant, and we do have a condition to address that. Or I guess not the applicant, the future property owner and developer, probably the HOA. So just going through some of the architectural elevations, these are these are the same that we saw in the preliminary plat. So they're all in your packet. They did provide a master signage plan as part of the PUD, and this is that. So it includes freestanding sign, monument signs, wall signs, and some of the projecting signs as well. The landscape plan is the same that was presented in the preliminary plat, as well as the lighting plan, and both of those meet town standards. So with that, the applicant, or the application was submitted and deemed complete. All noticing requirements were noticing requirements of the code were met. And we're unaware of any public comments that have been received. So on this one, the planning commission considered this application on September 26th. And at that time, they recommended approval with these 4 conditions. Staff's recommendation still remains to that we recommend approval of the final plat and PUD of the Riverfront Village PUD, incorporating the findings and comments discussed in the staff report with the following conditions. 1, prior to the town recording the final plat and PUD with the Ridgway County Clerk and Recorder's Office, an emergency access easement and utility easement as depicted on the final plat shall be recorded on Lot 2 Triangle subdivision. That's the adjacent property to the south. 2, prior to the town recording the final plat and PUD with the Ridgway County Clerk and Recorder's Office, a note shall be added to the final plat stating that the portions of the sewer line the developer will continue to own, maintain, and repair, which has been approved by town staff. 3, prior to recording the final plat and PUD with the Clerk and Recorder's Office, all clerical, grammatical, technical, and procedural non-material amendments to application materials be made as necessary. And 4, the subdivision improvement agreement be approved by town council. So with that, that's all that I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Thanks, TJ. That was very in-depth and complete. Thank you. Does anybody on council have questions for TJ?
Maybe not for TJ, but just generally, I saw that there are 10 short-term rentals, and I saw that those were just in, or an option for 10 short-term rentals, but those were just in the townhomes. There's not really a question about that, but I just want to say on the record, I'm not thrilled about that option. Are there 10 short-term rental licenses still available?
No.
Cool. So I think we need to make sure that we stay on top of that to make sure that those don't go undocumented and they're under the radar. And if those townhomes are getting rented out as a short-term rental, can we make sure that the owner has a primary residence in Ridgway? They pay taxes here, they vote here, this is where they live. And I saw that everything was dark sky compliant, but as we learned with Space to Create, dark sky compliant doesn't necessarily, like, the lighting got a little funky there. So I want to make sure that the lighting is addressed from the beginning. There's no weird stuff where we have to go back in, or you guys have to go back in and reassess. Specifically, I'm a bit concerned about those pole lights giving off too wide a range.
We address that at planning commission.
Thank you so much. You're the best. And then I was looking at the renderings of the businesses, and I couldn't tell, is there a lip or a step to get in those businesses? Are those going to be ADA compliant? These are all my questions.
We'll let I don't remember the answer to that. We'll let the applicant owner address that one in a minute when they come up to talk to us about their side of things. I don't think that our existing short-term rental regs require that the owner live in the pay taxes in town. So
yeah,
while I understand your hope that that were the case, but it's not currently required. So, but they do have to get a license, and staff's doing a good job of keeping up on making sure that nobody's doing it without a license, so that, you know, presumably they'll either be owner occupied or long-term rented until a license comes available.
Are there any short-term rental licenses available right now at all?
No,
All 50
that was
are
already
taken up.
That was already asked. Yeah, there's a waiting list. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just clarify something real quick that I completely understand the sentiment and the conversation. I think though it's also important to note that there are no limitations on what can or cannot be used as short-term rental, barring the license number. And what they've done in both the PUD, the plat notes, the PUD guide, as well as covenants, is limit which units can be used for short-term rental in perpetuity. So rather than the 38, there's only a potential for 10, assuming that all the other stars align as well.
Great, thanks for that clarification.
10 is still an awful lot.
10 out of 30. But I think our license program protects us from overabundance of that. Does the applicant want to address council and give us any info in the background?
Tom Kennedy, J. Kennedy. Thanks for hearing our application. We're happy to get to this point. It's been a good, thorough process. It's been a long haul. So, we're pleased with the work of your staff and the staff report. Have a couple of comments on the conditions, but more to the point to your questions. So we did talk about, well, the short-term rentals. Yeah, the plat does call out which units could theoretically apply for a short-term license. It doesn't mean that there'll be one. And if there is a license that's available, the applicant would need to comply with all your licensing requirements at the time. And so if you have requirements about, residency, the things you described, if that's what the law is at the time, they would just need to comply with whatever the requirements are at that time. The lighting, so it is dark sky compliant. It was a great question at the planning commission that we talked about. Our planner, Jim Kehoe's on the Zoom call. If you'd like to see any of those slides and that information, we can ask Jim to talk about them here in a second. And he can also then talk about the lip or the potential step for the commercial spaces. The conditions of the recommended approval, we're good with them. There was a condition about some of the conditions relating to the sewer as it's been installed. Jake and our builder is here. We can talk a little bit about that. We have updated the plat to include the plat notes that your staff has seen and is reviewing. That makes sense. We're okay with that as well. So do you have any other questions for us at this point? Yeah.
Because my fellow counselors expected I even ask this, I'll ask it. You had,
we're not doing a pickleball court.
You had previously discussed the possibility of solar in some or all of the units. Not sure if that's still in the plan, but are the units being designed to be what will eventually be required of new construction, solar ready, EV ready? Is that part of the design?
So at the moment, we don't have the solar in the plans. We have had some cost overruns in this project, and installing solar will jack up the price even more on these units. And our goal is to keep these as affordable as possible. And we are concerned right now if we do add solar, it'll add too much cost to the project. So at the moment, no, we're not planning on installing solar.
The idea of solar ready, having a circuit plumbed to the roof.
Yeah, so go ahead.
This is Jim Kehoe. This project was aggressively driven for solar, and there's the opportunity in the future. It is going to be fully set up. It is a fully electric project. There's not even a gas line going into any of the buildings or onto the site. So we are solar ready, as they term it.
And with a 240 volt circuits in the garages for potential EV use. Is that part of the current electrical plan?
Jim, can you speak to that?
Yeah, that again is that will be wired for that, and whether we install them is a budgetary consideration.
But it's set up.
That's great that they're plan, that you have three plan for that. Lowers the cost of implementing it later.
Great, thanks.
Do you want Jim to talk about the lighting now?
I don't know if we need,
I'm good. If
Okay.
planning commission did it, I would like to hear about the ADA compliance though.
Jim, did you hear that question when it was originally raised a little bit
Yeah,
earlier?
I've had a little bit of technical difficulty. If that question could be restated, please.
Yes. Are the businesses going to be ADA compliant?
Yes, they are. They have been designed per the ADA. They're accessible and they have accessible spots. The building does step and we meet the requirements for the slope of the grade, but we have negotiated the slope of the grade with the entryways per the ADA code.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
okay. Anybody have any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Thank you. Sounds good. I'll open it up for public comment. Anybody either here in the room or on Zoom have any comments, questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, I will close public comment and bring back up here for deliberation.
Hearing none, I'll move to approve the final plat and final PUD for Riverfront Village PUD subdivision, finding that the criteria set forth in section 7-4-5C9 of the RMC has been met with the following conditions. Number one, prior to the town recording the final plat and PUD with the Ray County Clerk and Recorder's Office, an emergency access easement and utility easement as depicted on the final plat shall be recorded on Lot 2 Triangle subdivision. Number two, prior to the town recording the final plat and PUD with the Ray County Clerk and Recorder's Office, a note shall be added to the final plat stating that the portions of the sewer line the developer will continue to own, maintain, or repair, which have been approved by the town staff. Number three, prior to town recording the final plat and PUD with the Ray County Clerk and Recorder's Office, all clerical, grammatic, technical, and procedural non-material amendments to application materials be made as necessary to ensure the ability to enforce, to administer the provisions pursuant to the Ridgway Municipal Code standards. Finally, number four, the subdivision improvement agreement be approved by the town council.
Second.
Great. Motion made by Terry, seconded by Russ. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Another step in the process. I'm excited to see it start coming out of the ground. All right. Making good progress here. That takes us to the final public hearing of the evening, item number 8, second reading of ordinance number 06-2023, granting the franchise agreement, granting the franchise to San Miguel Power Association to operate an electric power utilities in the town of Ridgway and fixing the terms and conditions thereof. Question, or I guess Bo's name's on this guy.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the second reading of the SMPA franchise agreement. Just bringing it back, it has been approved and signed off on by SMPA, and we don't think that we had any comments or questions since introduction in September, but happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Somebody have any comments, questions? Okay, I need to open it up for public comment. Anybody either in the room or on Zoom have any questions about this item? Hearing none, I will close the public comment and bring back up here for deliberation.
Hearing none, I move to approve ordinance number 06-2023 with second reading.
Second.
All right, motion made by Russ, seconded by Beth. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to policy matters. Item number 9 is review and action on subdivision improvements agreement between the town of Ridgway and Ridgway Homes LLC. Oh,
Thank you, Mayor. So not to say that you guys are kind of bound by this, but one of the conditions when you approved the final plat was that you enter into a subdivision improvement agreement with Wetterhorn Homes. In the packet is this proposed agreement. The concept is there are certain infrastructure improvements that are being delayed post the recording of the final plat. And there's a letter of credit to secure their completion. The schedule of the improvements and their proposed costs are included on Exhibit B of the SIA, primarily dealing with landscaping, curb gutter and sewer, with proposed completion date of late November. So that's the general concept, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Great, thanks, Paul. Does anyone on council have questions for Bo?
Is this the county construction of Frederick Street? Normally we don't dig in the right of way after it was 15th of November. Is that accounted for?
I saw that too. I was wondering if it probably has to do with the fact that it's already seen it, it's already past the point where it's below the frost line, and then, you know, I think they're just doing final completion, but
We have, so if I can talk to that, Frederick had to be redesigned for a variety of reasons, and they're in the process of doing that. I don't think it will be fully constructed by that November 15th moratorium date, but I think staff will be in a position, just as we were last year, of being comfortable letting them plug ahead to get to the finish line.
get it done. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm aware of that date.
And if I can just add, we're all aware of that date. If I can just add one thing, and sorry to do this at the dais, Paul, on this list is, we need as-bills. And this, it wasn't accounted for. I think we missed this when we were reviewing it. What are your thoughts on getting the as-bills in our possession?
So we have as-bills, the survey ready to go.
But some of them won't be, all the as-bills won't be final until, you know, for example, Frederick's Street is built out, so. As long as there's like a commitment to, that we actually get those are really important. So. But we think that suffices.
Yeah.
Just one other quick question on this. I'm looking at Exhibit B, and there's this last one here, Auto Street 37-foot section, sewer line testing and acceptance. We have a timeline for it, but there's no date or no cost. It should, I'm assuming that's something the town is doing the testing. And is it really just some pressure testing, or is it flow testing, or what? And if it doesn't meet.
Ms. Fagan can give you all the cool details about what goes into that, but that's on the developer to actually get all that testing done. Our crew inspects and makes sure that everything works. But that's really the extent of the town's involvement. Joanne, do you want to?
I guess
talk to that
real quick though. There's no completion cost on this. So is that?
I was wondering that too.
I think that's largely because it's like kind of in process now, and
hard to put a number on.
Hard to, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Joanne, do you have anything to add?
No, there's some outside services needed to test it, but it's pretty minor.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. Paul, do you have anything to add? Any questions, comments? Okay. So we'll make a motion.
I move to approve the subdivision improvement agreements with, all over the place, for Wetterhorn Homes LLC, or Ridgway Homes LLC, sorry.
Second. All right, motion made by Beth, seconded by Russ. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is unanimously. There you go. Thank you very much for your step. Next one up is final for The Alpine Homes project, item number 10, review and action on subdivision improvements agreement between Town of Ridgway and Alpine Homes, Ridgway LLC. Both.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a proposed subdivision improvement agreement between the town and Alpine Homes Ridgway LLC for the triangle lot and the final plat that you guys that you all just approved on a prior agenda item. Same concept here with respect to deferred infrastructure improvements, which the development team has requested a delay on putting forward. Here, the security will be either a letter of credit or a cash escrow equal to 1.5 times the amount of the proposed infrastructure costs. Again, the infrastructure costs are separated out on an exhibit 2, which has a completion date and the associated costs. I will note that the completion dates are kind of much further out than we were contemplating the prior subdivision improvement agreement. So with that, turn it over to the council if you guys have any additional questions or concerns.
I do have a question on the math, because in the spreadsheet at the end, it says the deferred infrastructure improvements are actually $176,612. So 150% of that is the total, not, so the contingency is a 50% contingency, not.
Oh, I misspoke. I said 150.
No, it says it's written the same way too. It says it will be the amount of deferred infrastructure agreements plus a contingency equal to 1.5 times. So that would be 176,000 plus 264,000, the way I'm.
Okay, that's not what's intended.
That's not, I know it's not what's intended, but that is the way it is actually written.
It's no.
The numbers work out, but the words don't say that.
I see exactly what you're saying, and no, it's just
Okay.
to be 1.5.
That makes sense. So total amount.
That's scary, don't you?
We've already been through this.
Okay.
All clear.
Okay, good. My questions are basically about some of these pretty far out completion dates for some of these things. January 1st and January 31st of 2025 is quite a ways off. But I know you've got a lot of work ahead of you.
Yeah, I'd let the applicant kind of weigh in on that. I would say that, you know, staff has had conversations with the applicant and the development team, trying to lean on kind of faster completion. I think the one thing that we have heard is they'd rather kind of push things out and finish early versus coming back, but again, let them speak to that.
Yeah, so the items there that are listed for the completion dates in January of 2025. I believe that was the street signage and what other one was on there, Bo?
Street lights.
Yeah, so those ones were the ones that we wanted to install at project completion due to fear of them being damaged during construction and having to rebuild. And our projected completion is in January of 2025, so that's where that date comes from. In a perfect world, we will hopefully have a few of those items completed much sooner. But like Bo said, we don't want to have to come back here and renegotiate to push them out farther if needed. So in our discussions with the town staff, we agreed upon those later dates just to be safe.
Okay, makes sense to me.
Yep. Same here.
Anybody up here have more questions you for Bo or the applicant? Okay. A motion then? Oh, it's not a public hearing.
Okay, good. So I move to approve the subdivision improvements agreement with Alpine Homes Ridgway LLC.
Seconded.
Motion made by Russ, seconded by Paul. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. No.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Good luck. All right, finally, we're at your item. Thanks for your patience, ladies. We have next up on the agenda, interviews with our Youth Advisory Council candidates and appointment of members. Do we have any online? Okay, you want to introduce this, Preston?
Sure, yeah, thank you, Mayor. So, town held another solicitation period for youth advisory council applications beginning on, August 22nd. So, we received 3 more applications from, I hope I say your names right, sorry if I don't. Kira DeLucio, Laura Malin, and Patrick McGahee. And a few of them are here tonight to visit with you all and talk about their interest in being on that board. Their applications are in the packet, it seems to meet the eligibility criteria for appointment. And then as a reminder, we already have Ms. Riley Burr and Ms. Hannah Reed already appointed to the 2023-2024 school year advisory council, so we are 2. And it looks like Kira and Laura are here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Let's see. How do we want to proceed? Normally we possibly ask some questions of these ladies. Somebody want to have any questions they want to ask? Or
What'd you think of all this that you sat and listened to?
I listened some. Building stuff.
Thanks for honesty. That's
I thought it was cool to see how like a bunch of these things that we might hear the town talk about, like just. Yeah, I never kind of thought it actually takes a bunch more people than actually just the building people, so like not just build a bunch of houses by my house. Why is it taking 4 years? It kind of makes sense.
Yep, it's a complicated process. I'd like to hear more from both of you just about what you hope to get out of being on the council.
I hope to like a better understanding of our town, I think, because for me, being involved in the town is more than just like being a community member, if that kind of makes sense. I want to be like behind the scenes. I want to see how things work, and that really interests me also. And having a say or like a voice in what happens or what goes on is also really important to me, because I'm a very opinionated person, and so having like something happen and just noticing it doesn't work for me, so I want to be a part of it. I mean, I agree with a lot of what she said. I'm just getting to see the stuff that not everyone gets to see, and being part of those conversations. It's not just like sitting in on them. It sounds really cool, and it's cool to have a voice or the opportunity to have one. Even if I don't really have anything to say, so, but I might. I don't know what we're gonna do, but
Great. I think those are good answers. Anybody else have questions?
We have a comment. We have a bunch of committees that you guys can participate in and do all the work. But seriously, the Sustainability Advisory Board has had discussions internal to their meetings about inviting some of you guys to that, either to just witness or to potentially participate as a ad hoc member. We haven't established a mechanism for that yet, but I'd be curious to see if that's something either you might be interested in as it relates to all things sustainability for the town. It's one of the more active, more regularly meeting committees, I guess. I don't know if that's true across the board. But just curious to see if that's something you might be interested in, if we find a mechanism for that. And you're certainly welcome as a member of the public to attend those meetings. We can make sure you're aware of the schedules.
yeah, thanks. I would for sure be interested. Yeah.
And in all fairness to all the other committees as well, they're on the town website. So you can check the flavors.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us? Now that you have us in front of you as you're prepared to take on this commitment?
I don't know my question. I'm just excited. Yeah. I really enjoyed like watching it.
You got a good taste of what we're doing.
What kind of issues are going on in conversation among your peers in school right now? I saw there was a comment about teachers working extra time and putting in a lot of extra effort and whether they're being compensated for it. A teacher, yeah. But are there any burning issues happening at the high school?
I don't know if there's any like really forward issues, but I definitely think teacher compensation should, like, I don't know, I just think it's like, there's a lot of effort that's being put in by teachers, and I hope that their compensation is reflecting that.
You're here.
Me too.
Right? Anyone else?
Thank you guys so much for applying. We're
Yeah.
so excited to have some more people.
Yeah.
Have a quorum.
Yeah, we had a downtime last year, so it's great to have more candidates and we should go ahead and appoint these last three.
I'll move to appoint Kira DeLucio, Laura Malin, and Patrick Gahey, is that how you say that? To the 2023-2024 Youth Advisory Council with terms expiring on June 30th, 2023.
Seconded.
All right, motion made by Terry, I think Beth, just by a little bit.
I think she's.
Second by Beth, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome, ladies,
Thank you.
and tell your friend Patrick. And you'll be hearing from Preston soon, and I usually attend all the council meetings too. You guys are all invited to attend as well, but look forward to the first one coming up.
Yeah, we'll be in touch soon. Thank you for being here.
So the correcting on the floor, it's actually one.
Oh, it's Lauren. Sorry about that.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
correcting
clarifying.
us. That's it now.
Yeah, well done. Is it Kira or Kyra? Kira?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Great, thanks for being here.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. That takes us to introduction of ordinance number 07-2023, amending section 6-2 of the Ridgway Municipal Code concerning floodplain management regulations and adopting the updated flood insurance study and flood insurance rate map. Preston.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So hopefully you had a chance to read the memo. The flood hazard determinations for our community are now considered final, and the flood insurance study and the rate map will become effective just after the first of the year, January 11th. And prior to that effective date, the town is required to adopt the new flood insurance study and the rate map and new floodplain management regulations that meet the standards of the National Flood Insurance Program. So the ordinance that's before you does just that. This is first reading or an introduction, if you will. So that's why we're here.
Great, thanks, Preston. Anybody have any questions on this item? It's been a long time coming, so it's good to see it get to this point.
When was the last update?
Gosh, probably.
It's the current map's 85.
Yeah.
There's been lowers and stuff.
There've been a couple updates, but this is major. This is great. Okay, so you want to introduce?
I'll move to approve first reading of ordinance number 07-2023, amending section 6-2 of the Ridgway Municipal Code concerning floodplain management regulations and adopting updated flood insurance study and flood insurance rate map.
Seconded.
Motion made by Russ, seconded by Polly. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Brings us to item number 13, ratification of purchase of audio visual equipment for the deaf community. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff's working to get the Decorative Community Room outfitted with some really great AV equipment. And we're looking to ratify the expenditure of budgeted funds to purchase the equipment. Tara actually has done a tremendous job, getting quotes for that equipment. JT was hugely helpful in evaluating some of the equipment that was proposed, Mayor Clark as well. Thank you for that. And,
I'm excited. It's gonna be great.
cool.
I met with them today as well and looked at their timeline, getting ready for the film festival. And of course, some things might be here on time and other things might not be, but looks like between myself and maybe other people in town, we have enough to make sure that they have the equipment they need.
Great.
Let me know if you need a mixer or a PA.
What's that?
Let me know if you need a mixer or a PA or microphones.
That's all in the quiver, yeah.
Cool. Well, you see the memo in front of you. Any other questions, comments? Or someone want to make a motion?
Move to ratify the purchase of AV equipment for the deck community or second.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Polly. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The other one passes unanimously. Thank you. This is the big one. Number 15, skipping number 14, presentation of the draft 2024 fiscal year budget. This is a statutory requirement that we do this before the 15th of October, if I'm not correctly.
That's currently right.
Take away, Pam.
Wow. So what's before you is an updated budget with the 2022 actual audited numbers. Our auditor will talk to you at the next meeting and present the final audit and our estimates for 2023. And I have not included a few numbers in the estimated year for 2023, mostly sales tax, lodging tax, and excise development tax in the general fund, which is a substantial number, and I will have a better handle on those soon. So that is affecting your beginning fund balance at your 2024 adopted budget. If we were to put a wag at that number, it's probably going to be close to $1.5 million, maybe, depending on what those excise development tax fees are going to be based on what you approved tonight, maybe closer to $2 million. And the other funds, water and sewer funds, I've also, I didn't put the tap fees in there. Again, those are based on the two, just one of the approvals tonight. That's going to make a change in those numbers. So those numbers aren't in there, and they will substantially increase the beginning fund balance for 2024. And we'll head into 2024 projections and capital improvement planning as we move forward in the budget process.
Thanks, Pam. Yeah, so this is basically a formality of introducing the budget. We still have a lot of work ahead of us, obviously. Lots of decisions to be made. Can be really curious to see how the property tax, although our property tax revenues are very relatively small compared to the county, but with all the increase in assessments, it's going to be an interesting discussion. So, anybody have any questions for Pam? Like I said, basically this is a formality. We've got all the work ahead of us, so there's probably not a need to get into any specific numbers. But if you have any questions, bring them up.
Sort of related, was CML weighed in on any of the property tax initiatives?
The HH?
Yeah, HH.
They're against it. Yeah.
Just haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah. Where's the article today in the Sun?
I have it on my list to read.
They've come out with a good summary of that. All right, somebody want to make a motion to introduce?
Do we need a motion?
No motion.
The minutes will note that you received it.
Presentation, correct, gotcha. All right, that takes us to written and verbal reports. Update on regarding the Ridgway Weather Homes project, is that?
No, and there's from Ross Valdez,
Oh, right.
Impact Development Services, that you just heard from All Major earlier.
Right.
Bless you. happy to highlight what's in the memo. Like, but that's the update on the status of the 2 remaining homes or lots.
Okay, anybody have any questions? On this memo? It's exciting to see it coming to a close.
Very much so.
It's getting quieter.
Yeah. I guess we're going to see that.
I'm up, I don't care, that's fine.
All right.
We're not compacting anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That takes us to item number 17, a letter from myself regarding appointments to planning commission. It's pretty much just an FYI again. But does anybody have any questions? I think Michelle's doing a great job and I'm willing to continue.
Is the commission full?
Yes.
Thank you for this.
Yeah,
Or some the planning commission at large.
I will.
Do it on the guilty.
Sounds good. That takes us to the town manager's report. Anything you want to highlight in there for the person? We just got it today, so.
Now today, hot off the press, late as always.
I have to admit, I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, thanks for your patience on that. Ride and drive event. Would like to talk about that.
I was actually there for that. It was great, but some of you guys should maybe talk more about the details. If you want.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Taking pictures.
I took a couple of them, yeah, sent them in here. Yeah, it was actually a great event and big kudos to Dave Jones for sure. Both on the outreach and the organization. Thanks to Rock for lunches. It actually was a pretty collaborative event. And Martine that came over from Clear, from Carbondale was great. They're a great resource if you guys need to look up anything about EV information and credits, tax credits, etc. And all that stuff was discussed there, and a lot of people took different vehicles, diversity of vehicles for rides, everything from Tesla to RAV Primes to the Segway motorcycle and utility vehicles.
Any Rivians?
And there was a Rivian truck, and I had never really kicked the tires on one, and it's pretty sexy.
He actually,
One so bad.
that was owned by Carl, who is involved with the Railroad Museum, and he didn't know about the event until that morning.
Oh my
And he
God.
just happened to see it and bring his truck over. That was pretty cool.
Thanks, Carl.
In fact, Carl mentioned, just total aside, he wants to, and Carl's been having health trouble, so hopefully this will happen, but he told me he wanted to get as many people who fit in the cab of his Rivian and drive us up to see the progress on the steam engine that the Railroad Museum has paid to have built. And he wanted to get one more step in the process done before we do that, so I'll keep you posted on that, but that's a cool option.
And if you want a driver's report on it, he said that he sold all of his Jeeps and he's now driven all of the passes in the San Juans in his Rivian.
Oh, wow.
And he bought it used.
Wow.
Because of his health problems, he said, I don't know that I'm beginning life long enough to buy a new one, so he found it used and it's amazing. Yeah.
That this is getting into the weeds, and thank you so much for dealing with it. But that storage underneath where you can just slide your skis into the truck, it's incredible. That's all.
And spray it out afterwards. I'd say that this is the kind of event that we definitely, SAB was great it was a great kind of first outing for us. And it's definitely, it helped. I mean, Eco Action was there, Sean was there. It was just a great opportunity actually for a lot of different conversations around all of the topics related to electrification, not just cars. Yeah, it was a good event.
It was very cool. I was only there briefly, but it was cool for a whole slew of different angles.
Yeah, it was like newfangled nerdy.
Yeah, totally was.
I had discussion briefly with Dave Jones about trying to do it in conjunction with either farmers market or maybe even a Ridgway concert in the future. And I know there's huge questions about whether that's a good fit in terms of parking and stuff. But what he said that he'd like to propose is maybe just have 4 parking places, like the EV charging stations and maybe 1 or 2 others and have just a limited number of EVs there, but have a tent and a table to provide information, offer rides, and get more exposure at a partner event. So I told them that I'd tell council about that, and we can talk about it further as it evolves.
Great idea. Great idea. Thanks for that, JT. The new AED and the heating cabinet are installed at the Athletic Park Pavilion.
Is there, it's pretty common in the county right now to be throwing Narcan in with the AED. Is that something they would consider obtaining from public health and stocking with that AED?
And training.
The training's been available throughout the county, but
Is it, I don't know much about it, but I know what Narcan is, but I didn't know that it's made publicly available in spots. Like, can anyone open it and just like?
Well, the thing is, you just waste it. Like, the reason it's publicly available is it's pretty much dummy proof. Like, you can't get high using Narcan.
Oh, yeah, there's no
reason to it. And so, you know, at the school at this point, we're with our AEDs, we're just now Narcan is there because it's become a public health location. People know to look for AEDs. So you're just seeing more and more.
I think it makes sense.
It'd be something to reach out to public health, Tanner, public health.
Is Narcan expensive?
It can be.
We get it free. I have a part supply of it.
Yeah.
We can do it too, because it outdates and I'm part of the fund, the state public health fund. They give it to us.
Yeah. And there were some concerns about the storage because the directions say it has to be stored under certain conditions. However, Pam Foister and I at the school went down the rabbit hole of they've actually done studies on freeze thaw, and it doesn't really seem to diminish the efficacy. And if it does slightly and you still try, it's better than not trying. So just something worth considering.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you for that. We did a roof repair on the Spire Pavilion, and I thought it was supposed to be done here the next week. It was done today, so
Great.
it's been repaired.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank Jeff for us. I assume that was a Jeff.
That was a Jeff. Yeah, sorry, that was Jeff Rivera project. Shout out Jeff.
Was that just a week or was there damage up there?
Sorry, the Jeff project was the AED. Yeah, we contracted out for the pavilion. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Was it just a leak or was there?
It's over the back, yes.
Just a deteriorating flat roof.
Okay.
I wondered about the tarp, yeah.
You see what?
I see a lot of kids up there.
The ones that Pam chases away?
So, yeah,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
ones that are gonna go home and tell their parents because,
You know, Pam.
I'm yelling at them, get off the roof. No.
Oh my gosh, what?
Sometimes he comes and grabs me. To make me be the bad guy. It's great.
That's so cruel.
Somebody's got to-
Right, we're going to Marshall right now.
Okay.
Sit on lady.
Not you or your kids. It looks like a kid problem. Sad about it. Lord have mercy.
The Erie County Public Health potluck dinner is on October 19th. If any of you would like to attend that, just email or RSVP to Alex at Voyager. It's a fall themed potluck. It's gonna be a great event.
I think it's great that they've got the mental health matters tied into that.
That's really what it's all about, yeah. I'm bummed that we're gonna be able to encourage you all to go.
I'm going,
Just on that note, just to throw it in there, I had a conversation with Sage Grouse Coffee up in the Steamboat. That they've become quite a community hub, and they actually even sponsor in the classic kind of community spheres, mental health roundtables at their coffee shop. And it's become kind of their hub. They've been following the kind of a national trend to bring that into public view more. So that's why I was glad to see.
I'm sure Nate would be open to that. That's similar.
That's right.
That's great.
That's not.
Terry was just asking about the next tri-agency dinner. City of Ridgway is trying to get that planned right now. They had proposed November 16th. I think that was the date, which was in conflict with our budget workshop. I think it was a Thursday evening. So we let them know that didn't work, and I think they're back to the drawing board to look at some dates. So that's where they're at. But City of Ridgway is up.
And we're up in the winter after the first of the year.
Yeah. After. Just a couple more things. I'm meeting with the County Planning Commission in a work session on October 19th. Some of y'all will be at the Mountain Towns Summit over in the Vail Valley, which is great. But the County Planning Commission's sent over a whole host of questions about capacity for growth expectations and such. So that should be a very good conversation. I'm meeting with TJ later in the week to get prepared for that. That afternoon, Ridgway's up at 4, City of Ridgway after that around 5 o'clock. So should be good. It's all part of their master plan update. Last thing I'll mention, somewhat convoluted because you get into the cybersecurity realm, but don't recall if we've talked about this at length before, but at our water treatment facility, it has been operating since 2019 on a standalone computer, which has been a great computer, but with no backup, very little cybersecurity measures. So this year we budgeted for enlisting Browns Hill to come in and implement their full-featured cybersecurity protected SCADA system. They call, I don't know what the acronym is, but it's the BSAAS platform.
SaaS is System as a Service, I know that, but
that's what it stands for.
or Software as a Service, I think.
It's taken a number of months, but we're at a point where it's been implemented and it's online. We've just taken the whole computer down, and the system is wonderful, and it's just unbelievable how much safer we feel, to be honest with you.
That's really important.
Having that whole system in place, and plus with Browns Hill's backup and their 24/7 backup with their staff in the event that we need something. It's just huge. So very excited about that. Chris Lane deserves so much kudos for all his work, working with Browns Hill reps to get that in place. It was a lot of headaches for everybody, but specifically him. So shout out to Chris, and it's a neat system now. So there's more in there, but
Can I ask you a quick question about that one? So this is strictly at the water plant is where they've installed all this gear?
Right.
Is this intended to also connect to any of the metering that we had some meters that were in our ditch line that we were gonna update or make sure we're getting proper readings on?
right.
Is this connected with that at all or no?
No,
Okay.
no, it's totally separate deal. Good question. What you're referring to is like the flow measuring devices to help us with data collection and measuring, and that's on the docket for sure. We're working with another company on getting that system and that equipment ready to go. At the top of that list for that type of project, we're wanting to get another meter or two up at the water treatment plant right below the tanks and right before the tanks. We're looking at that to make sure we have capture the numbers that we're supposed to capture. So
Sure.
those were all recommendations from that water supply system.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know if this was linked to that or not.
Now this just, not to be too long-winded, this came up last year when Pro Velocity came to us and they're like, if that computer broke, you guys are, what I was gonna say.
Well,
Yeah. We're like, what? And so that was the impetus.
Okay, cool, thanks.
I can answer any questions.
Great joke, math teacher approved.
I liked both of them.
You liked the joke.
I liked the joke.
Wow.
I know, it's groundbreaking.
I would say 2 for 2 on this one.
I like.
2 for 2.
That's 100%.
Yeah.
That's also a math teacher joke.
Good nanny joke too.
You're good.
They're cute.
Those are different.
Did you see him?
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure you weren't like,
No, I know exactly.
okay, good. I didn't want you to be left out in the cold.
Either of these from both?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, Bo, you have to
I
get
like-
one in.
I contributed to us fun. I like the joke. Those were good.
We encourage you to be. Anyone can contribute, right?
Right.
All right,
Word anyways isn't a word. So,
What?
anyways, people use that driving nuts, it's not actually a word.
It's like irregardless.
yeah,
Just like a discussion about
You know,
jokes at
right?
8:15.
and we have an executive session.
Yeah.
But first, let's hear if there are any committee reports, get those out. You have any?
Yeah, I'll jump in and do a follow-up with the letter that Kristen sent out directly to everybody. It didn't make it fully in the packet. Sustainability Advisory Board, did everybody get a chance to read it?
Yep.
So I just, before I kind of go through and break it all down, does anybody have any questions right off the bat? Questions, concerns? Or I can just kind of flesh the final part out and what the motivation for it was. So it's coming from Sustainability Advisory Board and obviously a variety of opinions. Here, let me put it this way. We've been going through the process of partaking in the Mountain Town 2030 seminars that have been this past year, and they've become a great way to collaborate and network and understand what towns are facing, especially in terms of building code and efforts in things like caps in different parts of the state. But we came to terms with the fact that we've made commitments and we've made progress, but we wanted to take a more aggressive path to leverage this town at this juncture on a path towards net zero. And there's a lot of other communities here in Colorado that are making the same efforts and trying to figure out how to do it in their own nuanced ways. And I think no pun intended, the climate is right now in Ridgway, and as per the letter, we'd like to basically bake it into the DNA of all sectors of town, so that any reflex even among staff to order toilet paper or whatever else thinks what is going to be the most environmentally sound way we can proceed on this. And same with especially moving forward with all of the code issues coming up for planning commission, for all the different committees, just across the board. We want to shine a brighter light on this and accelerate and amplify the path towards net zero. And we understand that to get there, kind of the common parlance is a roadmap to get there. And there are roadmaps that are out there. There are roadmaps that are new ones being made, but they're all right now being borrowed from and shared, especially through this Mountain Town 2030 process. And we mentioned the conference quite a bit that we'll be at next week. And basically what I'm looking for right now is two things on behalf of the SAB, is a motion and some direction for staff to start putting this forward as a resolution for the town of Ridgway. We have a resolution to work on the CAP with Eco Action Partners, but in terms of taking it to the next step, looking for the blessing from the council to explore this via staff to make it more formal and help us become a universal part of the way we think in this town, and even leverage that into the identity of what this town is. Because we are going through, like a lot of other towns, some major development issues. And whether you want to look through a crisis lens or whether you want to look at a phased sustainable process, I think this is a great way to bring that lens up into focus for all of us. And so I want to give staff direction to start putting together a resolution. But I also wanted to get a blessing tonight as well, so that next week when we're at the conference with Mountain Town 2030, great opportunity for networking and collaboration, not just in the short term, but for the long term. Also making sure we don't reinvent the wheel this process. Like to get your feedback and any thoughts moving forward on the path towards net zero. I was very curious from you, because I know Jake will be there next week from CC4CA. And your thoughts?
I'm bummed that I can't go, but yeah, I think creating a roadmap, I think one of the biggest things from CC4CA is that networking, not reinventing the wheel. Mountain towns have the advantage of other smaller communities also making roadmaps. One of the things that comes out of CC4CA is what sort of things can we borrow from bigger communities that are, you know, Boulder has an entire sustainability department, right? So what ideas filter down? So yeah, I think grabbing those ideas is excellent. I think creating those expectations is really important. I think we need to be really intentional about our net zero goals, because we're gonna run into discussions just like we had tonight with a developer around solar being an added cost. And so phasing that in, thinking about, because unfortunately banks don't care that you're gonna save money on your electricity bills. They're approving you for your mortgage based on the mortgage portion of your payments. So I think seeing a variety of approaches in other communities, some who are going for it right away and others who are looking for a phased approach will be crucial. Because again, we have to get the buy-in in the same way we had a discussion earlier tonight with the athletic park.
Just on your last point with that one developer, Paul Majors and Rural Homes LLC explored and pioneered this idea of using the Clean Energy Collective to provide very low interest loans that are then paid back on the utility bill and are not actually considered debt. So they don't affect their loan to income ratios or their ability to get a mortgage. And they're paying for the solar and the heat pumps and other beneficial electrification through a repayment on their utility bill, which is something SMPA is pioneering as the first in the state to do that. And it was a subject of a lot of curiosity at the Utility Exchange Conference I went to in Vail 2 weeks ago, where this model was introduced to other utilities. And so it's going to be adopted through Tri-State as a mechanism where all of the 43 co-ops can adopt this process that they're going to help manage. So that's an interest. So that would have negated the concern over the extra costs upfront, that the individual users could do this on their own through the utility bill and achieve those savings without considered debt. Cool.
And in the letter, just so you guys know how we got from point A to point Z to get this to you, you'll look at different towns and you'll see that some towns say we're going to get to 100% net zero by 2030. Others break it down by sector. Say we're going to get 65 by this year and 100% down the line at this. We understand that that's very nuanced. It's also a process unto itself to even measure that and figure out what the metrics are for it. But especially from the conversation side of it with the public, almost always the first thing is, well, that's going to cost that much more, and the cost overruns. So trying to vet the information that's out there and the programs that are out there, and the costs for the actual investment stage or construction on a new build, making sure that all of that information is ready to duplicate both at SAB website, but also in the town. And that's part of our educational outreach as well.
And we all know there will be costs associated with not acting as well. And that's the other piece. Those are much less quantifiable on a community by community level, but dealing with extreme weather events, dealing with, any of the changes we're going to see, like we all know that, and it's part of that education is, yes, we're actually internalizing some of the prevention costs versus waiting for those externalized costs of doing nothing to hit us. So, but yeah, I think it's excellent. I think we do need to keep moving forward. That was, why you got the thumbs up so fast when you asked about Solar Green Street. Like that's not the focus of this council. It's just everything is in balance with everything.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you said right at the get-go today about the athletic fields in terms of the political currency moving forward. And yeah, tough to swallow and understood, but for instance, you know, there was that challenge, that muddy process where there were carts and horses that got delivered, and Terry having to, you know, do a quick explanation, which quickly got bastardized out in the public sphere. But I would like to make sure that as we move forward as a unit, as a community, as a culture, we amplify this stuff in every decision we make. And that's kind of what I feel like this sustainability advisory board has decided its core role is doing, is making, whether we're a squeaky wheel or we're you know, pursuing this optimistically and aggressively is what we're gonna get after.
But it will help with the transparency, like, we are doing this, this is what we are doing, which is what the public wants. They don't want to hear that it was discussed, but it wasn't supposed to be published, but it was leaked, but it was a public meeting, so it really was public information. Like, that's not a messaging you want. You want it to be, this is a central focus of how we're looking at any decision that we make. So
An idea you proposed briefly earlier on when we were talking about solar, and then I like it, I've been taking notes on, and I'm gonna bring it up in front of the SAP, is the idea that solar at the Green Street Park help convert or conform that to the Ridgway Sustainability Park. And we actually create in that space.
it's the Green Street Park.
Either that. I mean, basically, we create some sustainability kiosks, pavilion, have sustainability meetings, promote the concept of sustainability along with the apiary and the community solar garden, and the community garden. I think that would be an interesting focus for the SAB to look at, and helping to sponsor the idea that changing the nature of that park to a sustainability park, using it as an educational.
As long as that doesn't detract from making sure across the I's and T's in the ethos of this
No,
town.
it shouldn't be just a symbolic gesture. It is a center like point of the.
It could be an attraction, so people come see all these things in play.
But is that the direction? What other direction are you looking for? Is it blessing?
I think if we just, I mean, I'm guessing there's consensus here that council direct staff to come up with a resolution that we can take up at the November meeting, and then use that fact that we've done that as what we want to be able to say at the conference next week, that the town of Ridgway is committed to a net zero roadmap resolution. And then I'll just throw out that Chris Steinkamp, the director, and he reached out several times over the last month or two asking if we could come up with, if everybody who's attending can come up with one or two things that are outside of what we're already doing. And I just recently suggested that we commit to at least converting one of our Marshall's vehicles to an EV within the next 2 years. I know the goal will be to get all of them converted in time, but and this is the first year hearing this, Shane, but I think that's one concrete thing we can do, commit to. And then another one that I've been thinking about for a long time, but it's much more involved and has some ramifications that we have to explore, which is the town's financial entity that we work with for dealing with our investments and stuff, is Colo Trust. And I'd like to see if we can get as many municipalities and counties around the state that use Colo Trust to band together and convince them to divest from any oil and gas investments that they have. And I don't even know, I'm assuming they have some, because everybody seems to, but I haven't gotten even that far to find out if they have. And I realize that that's something that's a big ball of wax, but something that I think we can commit to at least discussing with the communities that are at the MT 2030 conference, and get CC4CA involved as well. So that, just so everybody knows, that's the two things that I mentioned we bring up on top of this.
You got the direction we need.
Yeah, great.
One other quick update. Tomorrow, I'm working with the subcontractor to perform a site assessment of the space to create for the details and the costing and the design of the microgrid that we've been talking about. And then I'm gonna be writing that into a grant. San Miguel Power has to submit. Money will then come to the town for the purchase of that microgrid. So I'm gonna have to tap, I don't know if it's Tara or Preston to generate some narrative language about the idea that community space, the Decker Room, be considered a resilience hub. And some of the initiatives behind that, like putting in a charging bar, things, and the audiovisual equipment, a list of loads, those kinds of things eventually. But the grant's due November 16th, so I'll be shortly working on writing that grant and trying to get as much as 2/3 of the remaining balance minus the 30% federal ITC grant. So hopefully the total net cost of the town will be reduced significantly, maybe below what we budgeted last year for this.
Right? Awesome. Really cool. Okay. Anything else? Somebody else have a community report?
Maybe it'll stop.
Okay. We have an executive session to
Daniel,
yeah.
Stay dry.
Yeah, why don't we take a
Bulldogs.
take like a 5-minute break? Is that enough?
Yeah.
So we'll resume the meeting at 8:37, and then we'll go into executive session.
I'm always interested.
Preston, did your Cowboys win when you got to see them?
They won that one.
They want that one.
You were there. I was there, bro. Yeah, thanks for asking. It was cool. Yeah, that's Dan Drain game. That was a tough one. Yeah.
Downstairs.
We used to have Pam remembers, we used to have all sorts of interactive things when we took a break. First they were mostly junk. We could do that again, right, Pam?
For breaks.
John, you asked for snaps last December, I had one house. You never stopped bleeding. And I just.
Oh.
I can actually fix. And I
didn't realize.
Die hard, yeah. Most people say, I'm sorry, like that. But
It just brings a lot of emotions.
we all can't be perfect.
I was raised as a.
My dad would say, I grew up in Texas. My dad was a huge Cowboys fan, and then at some point when they fired Landry in the late 80s, I guess early 90s, that he became an Oilers fan, and they left.
Right?
It's been bad.
It's really hard to. One team. Most people do. I mean, unless you're somewhere in.
You're just there all the time.
Your family, your dad, and you were all born and raised in a Patriots fan. Eagles fan. Those are about the only Green Bay.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good one. Pittsburgh. But I'm never changing. It's always gonna be Dallas. He's shaking his head.
Good on you.
Anyway, that's where.
Stage one is through.
Even when they're terrible. Like on Sunday.
Like on Sunday.
Exactly.
I gave them all the benefit of the doubt, didn't play my 49ers defense. Yeah.
How are you supposed to know? Fantasy is wild, man.
It's not good for the emotions.
No, it's not. Are you in the same league?
I wasn't invited into the league. So I have 4 leagues that I'm.
You're in 4 leagues right now?
Yes.
How many are you in? That's right. I'm in 2 and that's.
I went into Monday with the real fantasy psychosis. I was playing against somebody who had Josh Jacobs going. I had like an 18-point lead here, a 21 lead. So it was like, okay, you can do okay, but not that good. But
Not that good.
I was counting on Josh Jacobs in another league.
Yeah, so you needed.
I needed 13 points to tie and he scored 14, so as it worked out.
So you won both those leagues because you 13 to 17 was the
Yes.
threshold. Yeah,
Yes.
that's cool.
I ended up 3-1. So.
See, but that's where it gets messy in that.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Have a great evening.
That's right. No, I forget.
Well, those 2 girls are gonna be troopers. I can't believe they still lined up for.
Yeah, I think that's what. Although it's them going, I had no idea.
I mean, yeah, talk about, that was like the perfect meeting for them. This is what they. Sit through that.
No, I will say, I thought the whole part went really well.
Oh, yeah, what-
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a very productive.
Well, I was
conversation.
surprised that there was not similar to the other meetings, a gazillion people here.
Yeah, I thought there'd be a lot of people here, but.
Yeah.
I think they were relying on their words.
Yes.
I thought there were gonna be so many more people here tonight.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, actually, I hope they heard that we heard the comment because it is frustrating when it's like, well, I wrote a letter and let me tell you what I said in my letter. I read your letter. I read it. Like I heard you.
Thought we all did a really good job.
I thought we did too.
We did our job.
We did.
Let's bring on ourselves.
That's right. Raises for everyone. Especially JT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Was happy to see you.
What are you proud of me? The whole Craig Childs project I did in the Tez area. The man band, I did sound, I did projection, I did all the way. It's bad. It was so tricky. The woman who was a performer came to Cleo and she was like, oh, I'll bring my own mic and we're gonna do 2 stands. I was like, oh, I'll bring all that.
Oh, so you're
When I get there, she's like, oh, I play the Mount Dulcimer, I'm playing the violin, I sing, I use the violin and the main mic, and I play, and so 3 instruments against the needle. And I was like, holy shit, how do I pull this all off out here?
Did she have a compressor?
I think that's your mic, but I actually very few with stuff. But the fact that I had to do her and Craig outside with people sitting below us in an echo chamber in an outside canyon and everything. Yeah, like.
I am so proud of you.
And it's crystal clear. Like, the guy came up to me afterwards, and he's like, did all this lighting and he's like projected by laser projector on all the buildings and rocks and everything. Doing the shit. I'm nice. Hit the button, I was changing the brush. He came up and then turned out he was Quentin Tarantino. Like, I didn't know this last. I love the way you designed this schedule. He's Quentin Tarantino's light designer.
Oh my God.
And I was like, thanks, man. I think so. We're gonna help. We worked for the Coen Brothers. We have bridges.
Good hire.
Yeah, but it was very stressful. They were probably together and they just scared the.
That makes me like
200 people.
aggressively anxious.
It was good. Oh, it made me.
I don't know, maybe I do.
Sorry, John.
No problem.
I got the furry eyeball.
I know, well, this is my issue with all dogs going forward. It's very simple.
All right, we're back in session and Preston has the citation for the executive session. There's nobody on Zoom anymore, so.
All right.
I think we're okay.
So get a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-4024F for discussion of a personnel matter concerning the town manager's performance evaluation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Polly, seconded by Russ, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?